we are live.
Are
Even
we
though there's
alive?
just the two of us here, which is going to be like super boring for everyone,
But are we
especially me.
alive? Well, okay, it might be boring for you. Don't worry, I have like things to talk about in the case like there's like nothing else to like say. But hey, to those in the chat right now, well, especially you, Joey, you have the link, so you can come on and join us, like if you want to, as it were.
Joey and Tavi and
Well, Taffy has the link, and like Taffy will come on.
Look at that! There's Tavi.
Speak and
Hello.
speak, and she will come forth.
Wait, were we talking about me?
Just mentioned your name and then you showed up.
Hello.
Hello,
and
hey,
Isaiah.
Hey. So I'm gonna be attending the podcast while also finishing up my my latest YouTube video, if that's okay.
That's fine.
multitasking.
Yeah.
Multitasking's great.
That's honestly what I should do. I should figure out how to like. Okay, here I was just going to edit the videos I want as the way I want it. Basically,
Editing is for chumps. Got to be honest. Just do it like I do and do nothing.
Okay, so Isaiah, make sure that the YouTube stream is muted so that like we don't hear our feedback. And but also but no, I had to edit things because like I'm taking the times I read a political essay on my streams and then like make that into like put that up onto YouTube. So I'm cutting out at least the 3-minute beginning part and the like break in the middle, as it were. So at least like they won't have to see that.
Still too much effort.
Granted, which is why I have not posted a lot of videos on my YouTube channel. And there's actually some videos up on my YouTube channel that are already edited, already uploaded. I just have to finish up and like make a thumbnail and like finish up the description. And like again, it's like even though it probably doesn't help me get in a lot of views whatsoever, I still want to like use up all the tags that I can, or just randomly think of things to like tag this video with and see what like happens. Hi, Groundhog. Hey, Jordan Trumpy.
Hey, Paige. Hey, Paige. Happy Ace Week.
Yes, it is Happy Ace Week,
Ace Week.
Fluffers.
Yeah, I'm doing my latest video on the Mars curse. If you guys ever heard of that.
I know of the Madden curse, but that's something totally different, and the Campbell Shoot curse, but that's also again for like NFL. So what's the Mars curse?
So
Nobody cares if I eat on stream, right?
No.
Good.
Go ahead and eat on stream. Go ahead, Isaiah.
So I'm basically doing a video about the number of probes that have failed going to Mars. And some like think it's like some weird conspiracy stuff. So I'm doing it. So it's like an urban legend or something.
That's quite interesting. Because like especially when it gets into like politics or that sort of thing, or the space program, as a word, there's definitely a lot of like conspiracy theories of like a whole bunch of other different things as well. I mean, hell, I still have a coworker that doesn't believe we landed on the moon, and the only reason is because we've never been back there since. Nothing else. No, nothing else will convince him. Fun thing is, his birthday is on the day of the like anniversary of the moon landing, so maybe that's something that has to do with it. As a word, I don't know. August 10th, right?
No, the first landing on the moon was July 20th, 1969.
It is July 20th. Yeah, his birthday,
My birthday.
is July 20th.
Well, 12 years before I was born, but still my birthday.
Yeah, that's right. The groundhog turn. It sounds like going to Mars is hard. Yeah, who would have thought? Especially with the opposite rotation, as it were, and it's like you really have to like plan it out. And it's like it's
Doesn't it have like radioactive dust and shit?
No.
Everything in space is radioactive.
Oh, yes, and there's radiation all around us as well, but it's like our skin is able to protect us from that.
No, it's mostly because we have this magnetosphere and on protecting us from the lethal cosmic radiation. But we go up into outer space, we will start dying right away. And if we tried to go to Mars, we would not survive the trip.
You were saying, Isaiah?
No, I was saying we have cosmic background radiation.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that's right. Yeah, our magnetic fields is protecting us. So if the magnetic field simply disappears or something happens catastrophically, that'll be a total disaster. And I'm trying to remember. Wait, was that actually the plot of one disaster movie, not great disaster movie? I think
The Core.
Yes, The Core. They were.
And I think also the one with, not Johnny, the The one where they take Roland Emmerich to the day after tomorrow? No, that was a Ice Age movie.
Yeah, that was it.
12?
No.
2012.
2012. Oh yeah, that's right. The Mayan
John
calendar,
Cusack,
so-
that's the name I was trying to
John.
remember.
Yes.
Where he takes off in an airplane as the airstrip crumbles underneath him 3 times.
Groundhog said, if the Americans landed on the moon, that the Soviets should have been like trying, but I haven't heard of that. My driving instructor said that. Again, David Graeber credits like the Soviet space program for the greatest achievement the Soviet space program did, and it forces Americans to go to the moon first, because all the other firsts and spaces were the Soviet space program did that. And so, and people forget, it's like, and so that's actually the point I brought up to like my coworker who believes that like we never got into the moon. It's just like, well, because we don't have a reason to go to like outer space anymore, unless China does something, as it were, which actually Neil deGrasse Tyson to sexually assaulted some women, and he's a bit of a dick.
Well, he was accused by one woman that I've heard of. I don't think we had multiple accusations for Neil deGrasse Tyson.
It's like there's definitely one I know about, like according to like an article I read about that one woman who come forward with her story, stuff like that. There's other women that like haven't come forward, or just like are, you know, they said that like he has done it, and I keep it right. So take that for what it is. He still platformed Ben Shapiro on Star Talk Radio though, so yes.
I used to like Michael Shermer. You know who that is?
Oh yeah.
That's the guy, the
Skeptic magazine.
Yes. Oh god. Oh, and he's has he peddled some like straight up Nazi stuff already, as it were? Or
I don't know that he's gone full fash, but he is definitely
I used to be a major fan of Richard Dawkins back in the day.
A lot of new atheists were, as it were, because I'm sure The God Delusion is a really good book. But like afterwards, it's just Elevator Gate alone, but then all the other things we've already talked about. We talked about like him saying, what was it?
He's a fairly conservative cockwaffle. He got the right answer to one question, and that's about it.
Just like as Joey the Indigenous Heretic has said, the most infuriating subcategory of humans is the mediocre white guy that thinks they know everything. Perfect example.
I feel personally attacked.
But a good example of that is all of new atheisms. The Four Horsemen, Sam Harris, as it were, David Smalley, the David Silverman, and it's just like and all the YouTube atheists.
Matt Dillahunty. Basically, everyone who's still associated with the Texas atheist.
The Houston atheist community, something like that.
Some
like
atheist community. I can't. Austin.
I think it's Austin. Yeah,
changing.
Yeah, I mean, and like the Rationality Rules is another good one too. It's
because he came on and some trans people said, "Hey, he's kind of transphobic," and
yes,
then the Atheist Alliance, Austin, I can't remember what it's called anymore, but they said, "Okay, yeah, we're going to go ahead and violate all of our bylaws and elect a transphobe to the board, and we're going to kick out all the gay people," and that was that for them.
That sounds similar to what Lenin did, honestly, after the Russian Revolution. Marx and Engels did not directly do something just like that. They kind of like, having to have like a meeting where like a bunch of like voting happened in London, and a lot of people and since we were able to do it with a plurality vote.
Yeah, basically there was that whole kerfluffle around. I take it you just listened to Zoe Baker's.
Yes. Okay, but to be fair, I did read that part as well from Rudolf Rocker's Marxism and Marx and Anarchism essay too. That did also mention that.
Let's see if I can find a link to Zoe Baker's thing.
Yeah, it's going. But I have been listening to It's Going Down as well, because it's actually a great. It's a great site period, but it's also an anarchist site, and it has a good anarchist podcast too.
It's going down.
A lot of good information, and it covered It's Going Down. It's a weekly podcast, and they cover a lot of activism practice that's going on, and get a lot of diverse voices to on the cast too. But no, I did. So referring to how the first international finally ended, it was really the split between the status socialists like Marx and Engels and others like that, and the anarchists like Mikhail Bakunin and all the things. And I think it's always Baker's kind of right. It's just like it's just muddled because like it's not. A lot of people like to pit it against like the people, the big men of history, as it were, or Marxist Engels versus Bakunin, when it's really kind of like more just like the split of differences between like those two factions of socialists. And honestly, the split has never really like been mended since then, because like Marxist Leninists in general just like want a different society than what anarchists want.
Basically, although I've definitely met tankies who thought that we should just go, like we should, who have like supported North Korea before, which
like why?
Yeah, I know.
No.
I don't know. Some of that may also just be like people are just mad. So people will just support anything, and it's like that hates the status quo. Because that's what I've noticed, whether it's far right or far left. If people are like just really angry and just don't care anymore, they'll want anything as long as it's not the status quo, no matter how bad it is.
Joey the Indigenous Heretic says the Atheist Community of Austin. That was the name the organization you were trying to think of, the ACA. And hello, Comrade iBot. Howdy, comrades. Hope everything is well. Putting out some positivity for you all fast before out the door. I have the spoons again soon. Promise. Love and solidarity. You're always welcome, Comrade iBot. And thank you for coming in, dropping by, and saying hi, and let us know that you're alive and well too. That's important too. I agree. Jordan P. Tankies are the worst. It's like. Lynn B. Again, I've mentioned several times before. Sometimes when I mention I'm a communist, they say explain North Korea, and I'm like, I don't know the first thing about North Korea.
We don't have to explain North Korea. I mean, is North Korea an attack on democracy? Because I mean, it has Democratic Republic right there in the name.
I mean, isn't that how they try to say that socialists are Nazis because Nazis call themselves National Socialists?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. And China and Korea are both definitely actually communist because they call themselves communist. And therefore all communism is China and Korea.
I wonder if the people on the islands, do they like practice some form of like socialism or communism? Because they
which islands?
Like the American Samoa or places like that. Like
in Guam and all the American territories, all the places that we have military bases for, and like I think it's still to today that basically American Samoa or any other places that are like territories, as it were, the best they can do is become U.S. nationals, as it were, where it does have explicitly say on their like passport or something like, or their ID card of being an American Samoa, you are not a U.S. citizen, but you're part of the U.S. Commonwealth, as it were. And I don't know what they practice, honestly, because like I don't know much about American Samoa or Guam or the other like territories that like the United States have, and all because we want military bases over there, as we're, which actually that's what started first with Hawaii too, and also we like put the Queen under house arrest too, and force ourselves in there as well.
And Hawaii was also colonization for the benefit of white men who wanted to grow fruit.
Oh yes, all because of the pineapples. Damn it!
Bananas.
Also, Poontang. Don't forget that too.
Poontang? Oh yeah. What?
Plantains?
So well, it's like, like why do like a lot of men join the military and go to Asia? Because they
yeah. There are some people that do kind of like prefer to like date Asian women, and for sure, yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's like so long as they don't like fetishize this too much or like give into Orientalism, as it were, something. But like
we could really fucking go off about whiteness and the sexualization of anyone not in the whiteness club.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it's amazing how we have all of these sexual fetishes for anyone with a hint of melanin. Spicy Latina, jungle fever, yellow fever. God, everything.
Yeah.
Everywhere we go, it turns out that they are disgusting perverts, and we want to cure them of that with our Christianity.
What about Native Americans? Is there like a stereotype for them? Like,
yeah, look up. That gets into Joey's around. Joey can probably go off about this.
Joey, you can also join the call if you want to.
Missing and murdered Indigenous women. Mm-hmm. A lot of the hypersexualization of Indigenous women, like you can see it a lot in media and stuff. Like look at the way like Disney and other media portrays Indigenous women.
I did listen to a video about Lindsay Ellis when she talked, or maybe that, I don't know, was it her or was it someone else that talked about how Pocahontas was like, how it was very strange how it was shot. Like yes. Pocahontas would move like in this weird animal, like a I don't know.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Also like,
and also she was wearing the shortest of skirts.
Yes, but also, look at Pocahontas and look at Esmeralda in the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. Yeah, who's
Gypsy,
Romanian,
Jewish.
Romani, yeah.
Yeah, Romani.
Also, you could look at Road to El Dorado. Oh, I forget the character's name.
What's the character's name?
Well, I know the character, but is it the one? It's Rosie Perez, I think, was the voice actress.
She's a good actress though, but like I mentioned, yeah, it'll be that character. I wonder, Atlantis was actually kind of like
Chell is the character's name.
Yes. Oh, by the way, my friend Joanna Roberts absolutely hates Road to El Dorado because she's Mexican on her mother's side, and I think that like she is traced like they trace their heritage back to actually the Mayans, as it were. So yeah. Oh, she really hates Road to El Dorado. It's white savior narrative and colonialization, as it were.
That's all Disney has ever done.
And even though Road to El Dorado was actually not Disney, I think it's Fox. It's someone else. It was like someone else trying to do Disney's work. No, it was DreamWorks. It's actually, I think, DreamWorks. But yeah, go ahead.
But I'm thinking of Atlantis. That might have been a Disney movie. I don't know. But that was also the white savior thing.
That was Atlantis was a white savior thing. That one also had like a woman in color but with white hair, which is its own trope as well that we see in other shows. Even shows I like the Netflix Voltron, as it were.
So I guess my question is, I guess as a minority, so when it comes to white savior narratives, because I guess I will say this about them, because I've seen, and this is based on me seeing the movie The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like in the movie that she was this nagging Karen character, and she tried to command the story, despite the story being about the Michael Orr, the black football player. I did feel like she was trying to command the presence too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when it comes to white savior narratives, that's a problem.
Got a lot of inner city schools getting saved by white teachers. That's a very popular white savior narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle Pfeiffer, Dangerous
Mind. That's actually a common trope, as it were. The white people are going to come in and save the problems that were started by white people.
You're welcome. White people ended slavery.
I mean, James Cameron's Avatar is also like Ferngully, but now with like $500 million worth of budget, as it were. But that was like totally white savior, because it was the Marine, the white guy, who was better at being Navi than the rest of them, because he was able to get that one pterodactyl that like the others were not able to. And then, oh my god, he was so good and awesome. And hello, Tim, our teacher.
Speaking of white saviors, let's thank our patrons.
The patrons with the very funny names sometimes.
Yes, so let's start with Marty. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Marty.
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 And Malin. Malign.
Thank you,
Mylan.
Illy.
Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you, Ellie.
And Yo.
Thank you, Yo.
Thank you, Yo.
Couple of fuckboys.
Trying to copy Lido here.
I still don't know why someone would call themselves a fuckboy, but I guess
they don't. I call them fuckboys.
Yes, I'm one of them.
because it's Mehmet and Geek.
Yes, I'm one of the fuckboys. I don't mind being called a fuckboy, and Mehmet also does not mind being called a fuckboy because he's a self-identified slut too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I still feel like I'm not supposed to understand this.
It's just me fucking with a couple of the co-hosts.
Again, we need to have our own wiki, honestly, for this whole thing.
Then we have Tim.
Thank you, Tim, who's in our chat right now.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Yes, and Tim showing up in the chat is what reminded me to thank the patrons. And finally, Von Rack.
Thank you, Von Rack.
Thank you, Von Rack.
Yes, who has like I forgot to mention this to Julie. I have to remember to mention this to Julie, but yeah, Phone Rack can't join us live for these shows once we move to like a Sunday, but still is happy to support us as well. And he's still gay, I bet. 255 AD, it says like Atlantis reminds me of Stargate in that I'm pretty sure the libs who wrote it didn't realize how racist conspiracy theories they were trying from
the ancient alien shit.
Yes.
Brown people couldn't possibly build these magnificent things, therefore aliens.
I saw a video by a YouTuber named Quentin Reviews who talked about that.
Also, the Step Back History, Tristan Johnson also did like another video about that too. But yeah, this reminds me of a meme, and it shows like the pyramids, the East Island heads, and all this other things. These drawings in the sands, and also were. And basically the meme saying, just because white people didn't build it doesn't mean it was aliens. There's apparently someone's told me there are some conspiracy theories about like aliens built Stonehenge, as it were, but like there's not as common as all the other alien conspiracy theories.
You don't see them all over the place.
That's a good point, because it's like, like people built like the cathedrals of the Middle Ages, and that took a long time, and they were just like they used ropes and stuff and to hoist the stones, and then for the Mayans, aliens. I'm like,
and yet
why do all these pyramids have the same shape?
And yet they do acknowledge that Rome was not built in a day. But they still can't believe that brown people did it, as were. That's unfortunately what kind of like spurs some of this like fascination with like how we're saying about the Orientalism is that's what spurred some of this fascination of like the African continent, as it were. Look at these old ancient civilizations that we found and discovered, and which kind of like spurred the inspiration for like the adventure narrative in like books like
going back to Atlantis, the whole lost continent, and finding these ancient things, and couldn't have possibly been the brown people that did it. It was magic.
Mm-hmm. Atlantis also is like useful for a narrative, as it were, about like okay now
there's my internet back.
Okay, good.
So you were saying Atlantis, secret hidden white people
well, the narrative of Atlantis is also about like your own hubris, as it were, of like don't be too gluttonous. That's kind of why the narrative of Atlantis is always so useful. So why it's like it's retold a lot of times too. But yeah, I do take your point of just like it's and plus over sarcastic productions covers kind of like the Atlantis myth too, as it were. And it's like Blue kind of just like said that, like, listen, Plato just was trolling his audience when he talked about like Atlantis. He had no evidence that like Atlantis actually exists, but that's where a lot of the myths are based off of something that Plato said that like was written by someone else, and it's where. And apparently Tristan Johnson has a whole podcast of like ancient aliens and dunking on it. That's where. Did they not realize that like there were brown Romans as well as like Rome, and it had part of like North Africa? That's right, yes. But when the right wing talked about that, they believed that Rome was very white, as it were. Oh my God, Paul Johnson.
But Jonathan, just look at the statues, which no longer have their paint on them because
no, they're white. They're very, very white. That's how you can tell that the Romans were white, because the statues are pure white. Pure, racially
fact that they
pure.
used to be painted.
No, that's a lie. That's a lie.
Fox News has some very weird segments. Don't they? They had one like documentary in which they talked about that the astronauts went to the moon, but they made the whole thing about they took a Bible to the moon, a microfilm Bible.
And what's his name? Buzz Aldrin? One of the early first astronauts took communion on the moon.
Buzz Aldrin or Neil Armstrong, yeah.
You guys can't even give us the fucking moon to unite us in our common humanity. Can't you? You have to make it all about yourself.
Well, the conservatives and the right wing are very good at just like othering others, which that brings Isaiah, that brings up something that the right it's only the right wing that cares about this. The right wing just like so mad about this happened like weeks ago. Superman is bi, and everyone else is just like,
no, Superman only loves Lois Lane.
Lois Lane, yes.
I love that. That's the perfect typo.
That was like a state senator that said that in that typo, wasn't it? That was like actually like a politician too that said Lois Lane. Okay, I am dyslexic too. Dyslexic of the world, untied. But yet, so I would do a similar typo too.
Autocorrect made what's his name? Made Superman super gay.
Superman loves Lois Lane, but that's the point about like this sort of thing is that like, listen, it's not Clark Kent, the Superman we all know. It's John Kent. It's like Clark Kent's son, who's like taking up the mantle of like Superman because yes, legacy heroes happen. There's been 6 Robins anyway, and there's been 3 Blue Beetles. There's been like a couple of Spider-Mans, and there's been like what was the one I was like thinking of? Damn it. There's been legacy superheroes, so a bunch of Green Lanterns is like so so there's a new Superman, and the news articles it's a shocking headline to say Superman's bi as opposed to Superman not well known like a son John Kent who is now like come out as bisexual and has his own storyline that's separate from the main Superman Clark Kent's own storyline, blah 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 blah. It's not that good of a title, so that's why we get these like Superman's bi headlines. But then the right wing jumping on it.
Well, there's another thing in that right wing dunk on it. Mm-hmm. He only loves. I mean, I'll go with what he intended to say. He only loves Lois Lane.
It was Wendy Rogers. She intended to say Lois Lane, but yeah,
she. Okay, I mixed up who it was. Sorry, Wendy Rogers. So what she was saying about Lois Lane. It is possible to be bisexual and monogamous, and a lot of people are.
Yeah,
but also Superman has never only canonically loved Lois Lane. Mm-hmm. He also loved in high school there was Lana Lang, and he was also the mermaid Lapis Lazuli, I think. Whatever. He always only ever goes for people with 2 L's in their names, which again goes back to the bisexuality thing because Lex Luthor.
I always like.
That slash fic has been written about that. I'm absolutely sure.
Oh, there absolutely has been.
I just think Superman could be bi because he doesn't exist, so he can be wherever the hell he wants.
That's another point too, is that they're fictional characters, so you can write them however you want. So like, Superman's sexuality is like not set in stone. But in a Discord server I'm in, it was like this is still the strange thing that I still don't understand. Probably won't understand. But this person said, "Why can't the comic book writers get off their ass and like actually just like write a whole new like character and make that character bisexual instead of like have like John Kent ride on Superman's coattails?" I don't know about.
You mean right on Superman's dick?
But they did write a new character.
Yeah, but Jesse Gender like pointed out in her video on Friday as the words like, well, yes, and there you can still do that. You can still write all new like cast of like LGBTQIA plus characters as well, and happy ace ways again. Let's remember that, and and have those characters be there as to were. But and yes, there's times where it's like, yeah, you can create those new characters, and there's been like Black Panther, there's been like a female superheroes like Black Widow, and all this other kind of things, but sometimes it takes a while for them to like get made, and they don't really get that much like attention as opposed to the one superhero everyone knows about. Who's going to read a comic book about this superhero that no one knows about that comes out as bisexual, as opposed to Superman is bisexual, which is actually again John Kent, Clark Kent's son, and
one of Clark Kent's sons. He has twin sons.
Maybe. Oh, that's good. That's good. That's a good point, but it's just like I think it's and I don't understand why like writing Superman's coattails. I don't understand what this person was going on about, but like, but why is the right wing, the conservatives, just screaming up in arms? Even politicians, that's we're all about that. Well, honestly, it's a distraction. It's all about like not class consciousness, but like the opposite of that, as it were, is like class consciousness or something like that. They're really just like trying to distract from like the issues of the today, distract from the border situation,
distract from the fact that they refuse to do anything to help people, and are in fact trying to hurt people.
Distraction from the abortion ban bills that is going through, distraction from the border suppression bills that are trying to do, distraction that like, oh, we're not doing anything like help any of you people out, but Superman is by. But oh wait, there's another point. They're trying to force their sexuality onto our children, onto us, by making Superman spy. Okay,
Republicans just have no principles. It's just you're angry, I'm angry, we're all angry.
I'll push back. I'll push back a little bit on that, because I do think Republicans and conservatives do have principles. It's all about what's benefit them, as it were. And actually, that this can go to a bit into like why they're so up in arms about like Superman being bisexual. Just Jenner also pointed out, when you're a cishet white guy and you read Superman, especially if you're American, because Superman was all about like truth, justice, and the American way.
No, truth, justice, and social critical race theory.
That'll be nice though. But this is something that Dean Cain, that conservative that did play Superman on like the adventures of like
Superman
Superman and Lois, something like that. Clark and Lois, as it were. That's the show from the 90s, as it were.
It was a thoroughly mediocre show all around, I think.
Yeah,
I barely remember it.
I never watched it at all. But Dean Cain was kind of like, he sees Superman as the embodiment of the American way, which is why he would rather he makes a point that like open braver 30 years ago if he comes out of bi. True, but still doesn't mean that they can't do it today.
Is that why in that Jack Snyder movie that Superman that everyone hates, including Steve Shives, doesn't Superman like say, I'm just as American as you, General? It's like,
I was born in Kansas. I am American.
You're from outer space. What are you talking about?
He's an illegal immigrant.
And written by Jewish immigrants, created by Jewish immigrants as well.
They were basically making Moses in a cape.
Yeah. And Zack Snyder tried to like make Superman to be Jesus as with the Man of Steel.
Well, that's been everything in all of the Superman movies. They've always made him stupid Jesus.
But also Zack Snyder was actually advertising Man of Steel at like churches essentially, and with church groups as well. Zack Snyder's just like Christian fascist. Anyway,
they try to make Superman Jesus.
Oh, always. Every Superman movie has pretty explicitly made him Jesus.
Yeah.
Going back to 1979.
Yeah.
I guess Captain Kirk is Jesus to me then.
That's an interesting Jesus for you though, because like they'll just like put aside history for like women and say he's problematic in that department. So long as there's consent there, whatever. I'm totally cool. That's a word. But Dean Cain has wrote an op-ed about like his reaction to Superman being bi. It was interesting. It's very telling when he says like what he believes Superman should do. Superman should go into like Afghanistan, places where like women are not allowed to like be seen in public, and so and like the women there in Afghanistan. Yeah, Tavi's like face palming because like she knows like what this is all about too. Basically, Dean Cain wants Superman to be American imperialism. And remember, that happened in Batman v Superman. Also, where Superman just went to Afghanistan and created Benghazi incidents, which is why he was on trial in the middle of that movie, and where we see like what was like Grandma's peach tea.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
What's his name? Frank Miller wanted to send Superman. Batman over to Afghanistan with his Holy Terror Batman, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually he realized that was a stupid, shitty idea and kind of apologized for it.
Yeah. I just remember something about Batman versus Superman that I only saw once. It was so terrible, so I mostly forgot most of it.
Mm-hmm.
It does the the whole living with disability is worse than death trope.
They did do that.
Yeah, they do this whole horrible fucking thing where this guy was injured because of something Superman did.
It was the fight with Zod.
Yes.
I almost said Grodd. But Grodd is a Flash villain, not a Superman.
And he was in a wheelchair. And I think it was Lex Luthor gave him
put a bomb
hidden in his wheelchair.
And I don't think he even knew about it. Lex just
that
straight
was
up.
the
Oh, you know, okay.
But like Tavi, Zack Snyder it does think that way, because if you remember in 300, that fashion movie, there was a hunchback, as it were, a man who wanted to fight with the Spartans and with the 300, wanted to defend his country, as it were, but he can't lift up his shield too much. He's like not that good at the fight, and so Gerard Butler, main guy, said no, screw you, just go away. And that's that guy who got denied service with the 300 then ended up betraying the 300 and went to the Pharaoh, or the big tall guy, and again
Xerxes,
the Persians.
Xerxes, yeah.
I've just never seen the movie because it's too frat boyish for me.
Oh yes, it's way too.
I have never seen it either.
I never have.
The good thing of it's so terrible. It's so unfortunate. There's so much fascism undertones in that movie, because it's like a movie of 300, a big, sweaty, oily, a buff
beautiful naked men doing
in loincloths.
That's fascism.
These guys are certain that they're straight.
I mean, if this was Greece, I was called out of the question, or Rome, and called out of the question. Sparta?
No, they definitely had sex with each other in Sparta. They did that.
I believe
because they knew that they would fight. They would defend each other and help each other more if they were fuck buddies.
That makes sense. All is fair in love and war. But yeah, back to the original point. Dean Cain wanted Superman to be imperialism as well, which is part of also why conservatives hate the bi representation in Superman, because they see themselves in Superman, and if Superman's bi, again, they don't want to question their own sexuality as it were, and which is also why they believe that any LGBTQIA plus just being there, existence, any LGBTQIA plus existence, any queer existence is always sexual, part of the queerphobia, is because heterosexuality is just normal, as we're, because again, back to Batman v Superman totally boned Lois Lane in that bathtub. Absolutely. But yet they never complain about the sexuality being forced on us and on children, on kids in those movies, or with Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark playing up a playboy billionaire, as it were. One conservative said, we don't know about the sexuality of all the superheroes. No, you do. We know the sexuality of the heterosexual superheroes, and you never had a problem about those. But once Superman is by, oh my god, outrage. But it goes into the whole things of what they want to do. And again, it's all about what benefits them. And what benefits them is upholding the white supremacist, cis-hetero, patriarchal, ableist, imperial colonialist settler system, as it were. And so
it all comes back to whiteness in the end.
Exactly. And so long as they can uphold that, as it were, othering queer people, othering brown people of color, or for Dean Cain imposing America's will in the form of Superman in Afghanistan, Iraq, and all these other places. Remember, Superman 4, at least Superman 4 was taking away all the nuclear weapons, as it were, and trying to bring peace, as it were. But just to point that out, that there was a comic where Superman did exactly that, kind of what Dean Cain wanted the Superman to do, impose his will on the other people to bring peace to the whole world under the iron fist of Superman's rule as a tyrant, because he's big and powerful. So Why not? And was a critique of kind of like that idea, which is why to me, I agree with Steve Shives that like I need to rewatch the 1940s like the Felcher cartoons. I heard that because it'd be nice to like go to this now South Ship and rewatch those old cartoons. The 90s Superman cartoon is also good too. But like I like Superman as being a Boy Scout, where it's like, yes, he has all these powers. Yes, he could solve things by just punching things, but that's the least interesting part of superheroes, how they solve things with violence by punching things. That's the least interesting part. What's interesting is Superman, with all the powers that he has, but how does he use it responsibly, as it were? There were times where like Superman decided, no, I could easily fly over as Superman with this evidence to exonerate this man who's on death row. But I want to do this as Clark Kent. I want to actually do this in the normal way, as it were, like a everyday citizen,
as a journalist.
Yes, exactly. Which that goes to show you of like how important and useful like journalism is, especially since like the first step in history is journalism, reported, and then it goes into the history books as it were. But the journalism is kind of like exposing truth to power as well.
You know who my favorite superhero is? Jenny from My Life as a Teenage Robot. That's my favorite superhero.
My Life as a Teenage Robot. Ooh, I heard about that one, but I haven't seen it.
Actually, no, it's the Powerpuff Girls. Actually, that changed my mind.
Powerpuff Girls are great.
I should watch I've seen a couple of episodes of Powerpuff Girls, but I've seen enough to know it's like, okay, I really like the show. I'm going to really dig my show. My uncle loves this show, and it's like some of the shows that he also loves, like the Tick show from the cartoon from the 90s. That's a fun show. So if he likes the Powerpuff Girls, and I saw a couple episodes of it, it's like, okay, yeah, okay, I should watch the Powerpuff Girls. At least the first iteration of it. Not sure about the second iteration of it.
The others are trash. This the 90s one.
Okay, just the 90s one. Stick to the 90s one. That's good. I don't know what's my favorite superhero. That's the word.
The epitome of superhero media was Batman the Animated Series.
That's so.
Nothing has been better before or since. No,
that is my Batman. That's definitely my Batman. Kevin Conroy is my Batman again, because like, yeah, that Batman could just like punch things, but he's a detective, which he was always a detective, and that's the best aspects of like that show, of like trying to figure out.
And also that Batman shows compassion.
Yes. There was like an early episode in the first season where it's like, for some reason he has to throw in the Batcave, but oh well, it was kind of important for just the scene, as it were, just sitting and seeing Batman in the throne, as it were, but just like just somber and meditating and contemplating, as it were. And at the end of that episode, again with compassion, because again, sometimes Batman just fight gang members, just like the mafia, as it were, and those were very interesting episodes in their own right too. But then that's where at the end he says, I am vengeance, I am not, I am Batman, as it were. Again, he does, yes, what triggered Batman's quest for becoming Batman is like the death of his family, death of his father and mother by Joe Chill, but it's like he knows that like that would consume him if he focuses on just that, and like it never stopped until like that happens. So he has to be compassionate to the people that he is like grown to, attached to in the community, as it were. There was that one episode, yeah, it was a weak episode too, but he actually gave jobs to like the two guys that were like escaped from that one strange like a compound out in the coal mines when like Bruce Wayne lost his memory, and then it's like the guy at the end is like,
that was one of
Johnny,
the worst episodes. Yes,
that was one of the worst episodes. Yeah, Johnny, can you hit me in the head? Why? Because I want to wake up and see if I'm a billionaire too. The Hulk is an interesting superhero, indigenous heritage. I do like the Hulk a lot, because like there's the times where it's just Hulk smash, as it were, but there's the conflict between like Bruce Banner and the Hulk, and there's the times where it's like, okay, it's kind of Bruce Banner and the Hulk together in the Hulk's body, where Hulk can still say, oh, the sciencey shit and smart things to speak quite elegantly. Well, the Hulk and the Team of Smash is actually an interesting cartoon series I like, with like She-Hulk. I like She-Hulk as a character a lot. We need a She-Hulk movie. Come on, make it a comedy. Come on, because she is a character that like she can choose to go back to normal body, as were, but chose to like say a She-Hulk, and is also an accomplished lawyer too, as well. Another topic relative to like the.
So Alec Baldwin's a murderer.
Oh yeah, that's right. Let's talk about that. I heard about that.
Why the fuck was there live ammunition?
There wasn't live ammunition. It's just that sometimes even blanks don't have bullets in them, but they can still be dangerous. I mean, they have a full charge. Yeah, they just don't have the bullet in them.
So their gun safety was that bad.
Oh no, it's just that things can go wrong. Without negligence, without human error.
Just like Brandon.
Well, I was seeing something about the union workers walked off the set before that even happened because they were upset about the gun safety on the set.
Really?
Oh yes, and this ties into like the strike that they kind of like have attended deal of that the IATSE, which is the crew people of like films and sets, as were complaining about the long hours and 16-hour days and 12-hour days, or no breaks or no lunch breaks, work through lunch, that sort of thing. Because yes, when people are tired, people are fatigued, people are just like exhausted, they tend to make mistakes, and those mistakes are dirty. And yeah, that's the point I brought up. I talk a t-shirt that like sometimes accidents on set happens, like with Brandon Lee on set of The Crow.
In that case, it was a dummy round. A dummy round is a regular bullet, but they remove the charge and just leave primer, so that you can look at it and you can see that it looks like a normal bullet. The dummy round, the bullet ended up getting fired forward a bit and got lodged in the barrel, and then when the blank was fired, it had the charge, but no bullet. Dummy is a bullet with no charge. So together, they made a real bullet, and he got shot in the gut. With, what's his name? Baldwin. It might have just been blank rounds, because blanks, they have the charge, and any material that gets left behind in the barrel can become a dangerous projectile, which includes the crimping at the end of the bullet, which might break off and become a dangerous projectile, or wadding, padding inside the bullet to keep the charge in place. So blanks are dangerous, even without bullets in them. And it may be that that's what happened, or it might have been other stuff. I don't know all the details. All I know is that it didn't require negligence, it didn't require malice or anything like that. It could have just been a terrible accident.
Yeah, but like the cinematographer who has like a storied career from what I've like read is now gone and is no longer with us.
The director of photography died, and one other person was injured. I can't remember who.
But yeah, it's always like a terrible when that sort of thing happens. But I
graduated from film school, so good luck.
Yes. This is actually something that like this reminds me of a video I saw from Lindsay Ellis and Dan Olson. They were together. They were talking about like some of the student directors that want to be like renegade filmmakers, and they kind of like, there was a story of like someone who did not get a permit to be able to film on the train tracks. That's the word. They wanted to get a shot of the train tracks, but they were like, oh no, let's be renegade filmmakers. Let's like not get the permits. Let's get the shot of the train tracks at night so we can get this project done. And someone died because no one knew that they were going to be there on the train tracks, and when train came by, essentially, I think it's what I turned. So this is why, even though it's a hassle, and we can talk about the bureaucracies of all these sort of things, the local governments and all this stuff, but still get the permits when you can and if you need to. And if you can't afford to get the permits, as it were, probably wait until you actually have the budget to be able to pay people, cater them as well. That's important too, so that everyone is fed, as it were, and then get the proper permits so that things can be done safely. It's not your film or project is not so important that you like risk the lives of the crew or the actors or the people on set, as it were. So there's like other YouTube channels that just like cover like film school, but yeah, go ahead.
I think I'm gonna slip off because I'm starting to fall asleep. I've just been having a hard time because shift into fall and all that.
Okay, it was nice seeing you, Tabby.
Take care. Happy Ace Week, everybody. There's like a hashtag Ace Week, I think, going on. You can read up a whole bunch of stuff if anybody's interested.
Yeah, I should like look up the like sources that you provided before, like hey, do you think you might be like asexual? Well, here you go. Here's some like things to look up to see if you are asexual, or to like learn about like what it means to be asexual, because unfortunately, yes, there's a lot of like dumb questions that people will ask about like ace people. Is like, do ace people masturbate? And Literano has like said who's asexual herself. I just wish that like everyone else just like it forgets that ace people exist sometimes with questions like that. But yeah,
short, quick versions. Like being ace means having little to no sexual attraction. Ace people then can have a lot of diversity in how they feel about interest in engaging in sex, interest in receiving sexual attention, interest in being seen as sexy, etc. There are ace people who are outright 100% sex repulsed. They want nothing the fuck to do with it. And then there's even ace people who are sex workers.
Yep.
So it's like it's about being asexual is about attraction. So there's a huge spectrum of variation and diversity after that. So
I'm gonna put the links to asexuality.org in aeroromanticism.org. That should also provide you a good useful tool to like learn to educate yourself about like being ace and being arrow. So
this ace wolf is gonna go take a nap.
Bye, Tavi.
Night, Tavi. Bye. Thank you for coming in.
Bye, Tavi. And I gotta finish working on this YouTube video, so I'll see you guys next Sunday.
Okay. See you, Isaiah.
Bye, everybody.
All right, and that was just like the two boring and white dudes. Well, no, I'm sometimes a dude. So hey, anyone in the chat that want to say, hey, I want to come on, just let me know and I'll give you a link because the two of us are kind of like boring. But
and we definitely don't have enough people left for Fishy Fash.
Yeah, we don't have enough people for Fish Fash. I think honestly, Julie probably like fall asleep, which is totally understandable because like she's it has depression. Their situation is probably still not great, so like that affects her mental health, and so like the weather's probably not doing her fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis any good too. So it's probably a high pain day for her too as well. But there's like one other but. Even though it sounds like an old topic, and we mentioned this before, but I'm gonna say, fuck Dave Chappelle, he's a dick. Because what I put in the chat is something that like was like shared with me before, but it's like the story of like Delphina Dorman, which is the trans friend that Dave Chappelle mentioned at the end of his special, The Closer. This is what's and this is what a trans friend of hers have said about like Dave Chappelle and what Dave Chappelle has talked about this for. Long story short, is that like
she was a very, very minor comedian. He let her open for him. She got abused and took her own life.
Yes. What is eye-opening is that Mira Estrada, who's like wrote this piece that I posted into the chat from planetstrans.org, that they knew Delphina well. They had 3 memorials for Delphina Dorman. Dave Chappelle did not show the honor up to any one of them. Did not. Even
she was just a prop.
Yes, so Delphina probably did admire Dave Chappelle, despite the problematic jokes that Dave Chappelle actually said on as it were. But what's another thing that really pissed me off reading about this account? Again, I still have not seen the Dave Chappelle special, so I don't know anything about it. But Dave Chappelle has like. And Dave Chappelle in that special said, "I'm Team Turf," as it were. Yes, good point. To have a major content warning because this is content warning about transphobia, suicide. It mentions the suicide because that was a terrible thing that Dave Chappelle did. He talked about like David Delphina, and then described how she killed herself on the special. And when the details of that was not public, it was private, and as you can see, painful. And this is why Tabby reminded me of it's important to do the content warning, because as like Mira Estrada said in this piece, when you describe how someone took their own life, which is also, she brings up the point of like people say commit suicide, but like she doesn't like the term commit because it will imply that it's a crime. Took her own life. What's the term?
She died of suicide.
Yes, definitely. But describing how someone does that can lead to more people doing that same thing. And so Dave Chappelle in more ways is problematic and a dick, because like he clearly just used Delphine as a prop, and I knew it. I just knew it, that like he said, hey, I can't be transphobic. I have a trans friend. Or I did have a trans friend, but she died because you, all trans people on Twitter, harassed her for defending me, as it were. And it's like, I don't even think it was that was the reason that kind of like drove her to like it took her own life. I think it was like she had like a mental illness problems, as were, and it was like other things that were related to that. I don't think it was actually in the Twitter harassment that's mentioned. I don't think that was a factor. Dave Chappelle's painted narrative again tried to like absolve himself of like being transphobic. So
I still think Jesse Gender had like the best analysis of the situation all around.
Yeah, I do agree, because like yes, very true that like Dave Chappelle brings up the good points about like white feminism, the racist in the feminism like in movements, and how like LGBTQI plus people who are white can call on to their whiteness when they need that privilege, and for like dealing with the cops, as it were. All right, that's very true. Still so unfortunate. Oh, hey, Joey Lame Deer, how are you doing?
Joey. Still connected to audio, so maybe
not audio connected, so we should be able to hear you now. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Huzzah! Yes, we can. Huzzah! We have a Joy.
Right on. I decided to do a reverse white savioring, whatever that is, and save my white friends by coming on.
Yes, no, yeah, Tavi, that's okay. Again, in this one Discord server that I'm in, where the Discord owner says thinks Dave Chappelle is funny, but also recognizes that the transphobic jokes are standard. But that was the narrative that the people who were basically like standing for, some of them were really actually standing for Dave Chappelle, saying Dave Chappelle is funny as fuck. And some people, and the bigot that I've interacted with before posted a Blair White video defending Dave Chappelle. So it's like there's some of the conversation there. Yes, exactly. But you know, from what I've read in that kind of like discourse there, that's what they kind of like said, is that like it's unfortunate Dave Chappelle, they kind of said that like Delphina took her own life because of Twitter harassment. And so that was what I was told. Still have not seen the special, so I'm not going to see the special. Oh, and so that's what people believe. And I think Dave says something to that effect, as it were, but it's like, no, according to like what like Mary Estrada says, it's not the case. But like, so yeah, Dave Chappelle is just and Dave Chappelle has like told homophobic jokes before as well. So it's like remember, people, kill your heroes. The only good hero is a sandwich, and like problematic people are problematic people. As far as transphobia, I still say like Richard Gervais, the comedian who shouldn't forget his own name, is like still terrible and kind of worse. And just and there's also Geiner as well, but still Dave Chappelle still the dick. So Joey,
I'm kind of tempted to go back and watch all of the Dave Chappelle show, both seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because
I remember, I heard somebody say, you know, it's Dave Chappelle. He quit the show because he was worried about becoming, you know, that guy, and then he went to Africa to, you know, find himself, and came back that guy.
Mm-hmm.
So he found that guy.
Oh God, I don't want to say it. Okay, I was about to say something terrible, like send him back to Africa, but no, that's what the white racists said in like the 60s, as the rights movements, as it were. And besides, I don't think that'd be fair to the Africans either, to like have to deal with like Dave Chappelle too. So Joey, what have you been up to? And come and save us from our whiteness.
Actually, I haven't been up to much at all. It's been kind of boring on my front, which, don't get me wrong, I like that. I've had enough drama in my past and in my life that I don't like having any more of it when things are just normal and just average, and I can just be contented. That's smooth sailing for me. That's a nice even keel.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the world that way. Sometimes it's just like I mean, with some of the things that like I have like found to talk about, you can get somewhat upset and I'm pretty upset about that. But hey, it is Ace Week, so Joey, is one of your weeks as well.
Yes, it is. I'm always excited about it because it took me what 44 years to find the word for me. And that's because I didn't have those words when I was young. They didn't have them then. I mean, they were.
Well, ace people didn't exist then. It's something that, the Zoomers have invented it. It's
like they were using the word asexual when I was a kid. It was coined before I was born, but at the same time, if you're not discussing those things, if it's not in media, if there's no representation, how the fuck do you even know what's out there? And asexual people were not at the forefront of anybody's discussions.
No.
Like ever. I mean, I didn't even know what asexuality was until I hit my mid 40s. And then I find my own word, the word that describes me. And I'm like, oh shit, there's more of us out there. Holy crap. I'm not as abnormal as I thought I was.
People the whole idea is like, no, people are not just proofs, just people are just not interested in it. That doesn't mean that as Tavi said before, that she's aro ace and she does find sex enjoyable. It's just an attraction bet that she just doesn't get at all.
Yep.
Sexual drive.
And that is, I think, probably the part that's most difficult to explain is that you have to separate out your libido from how much you do or do not like sex from your attraction to other human beings. And those three things are separate. And that's the first point of explanation to anybody who doesn't even understand the first thing about asexuality. You have to start there because they get all of those things conflated and confused,
The groundhog has like done some research on her own because she's demisexual too. Correct me if I'm wrong, groundhog. But the asexuality was the thing since the 1920s. But just because something existed doesn't mean that everyone knows about it, obviously. The same with bisexuality too. It's always been around, but people didn't have a word for it or knew the word existed for that, as well as pansexuality and all that other stuff as well. Or even non-binary and our genderqueer, all the other gender fluid, all the other different millions of genders out there as were. Groundhog's demisexual and demi-romantic. That's the thing is don't. Maybe it's Latino as a word, but also my older sibling who's their agender themselves is demisexual because once I saw that they explained this in 2 years ago at Pride during Pride Month just because of that, and it was like, you know what, knowing my older sibling, it totally makes sense how they can be sexually attracted to someone, but they have to have that connection to that person first, and then they can be sexually attracted to them as were. And
what's funny is that when I started finding my words and I started describing myself to my siblings were like, oh, that's so awesome. You just found your word, because my siblings got it. They knew me better than most people because siblings usually do. I mean, just do. Usually your siblings know you backwards and forwards. They know your shittiest parts and your best parts because you don't usually hide the same shit from your siblings that you do from your parents or anybody else.
Sure.
Usually if you need somebody to help you do the dirty deed, you can you find a sibling and usually you can talk them into helping you, usually. So that whole sibling thing, like when I explained it to my siblings just immediately understood. They were like, oh, I get it now. I totally see that in you. I didn't know there was a word for it. And they understood. I hardly had to come out to them at all. Like, they already knew something was different about me. They just didn't have a word for it, you know. And we're back again to the words for it. Like, if you don't have representation in media, if you don't have, like, the words are actually out there for people to consume, then people don't know that those things exist.
Yeah, and think about it, like asexuality in media. I don't know of anything in popular media that can, like, I can point to is like, yo, that's an ace person, as it were, so you can, like, watch to them. There was a panel I went to at CameraCon 2 years ago or 3 years ago about, like, asexuality in manga more, as it were, because there's only one Magakin that I know about that, like, came out as actually asexual. And you can actually kind of, like, see that in some of this manga work too, because, like, it's there was this one show, I forgot the name of it, and the manga is by the same name too, but you can see actually it's kind of like relationship between the two characters is what's the panel is, like, called queer platonic. So you've kind of, like, sensed something there that's, like, just a little, like, not heterosexual, as were, or not heteronormative or cis heteronormative. It's like maybe there's, like, something there, and then you can find out if, like, the author is queer or not, as well, to kind of, like, help with that. But yeah, it's so rare to find, like, anyone that's, like, openly ace and creating media and creating stories or creating, like, comics and other things as were. But then again, part two is kind of like why is, like, Superman being bi instead of creating a whole new character to make them bi. So sometimes they're not getting greenlit, or not being there to, like, tell the story, or not being able to get the opportunities to, like, tell the story to get that representation too, even though reputation does matter, because even if it's just like a parasocial relationship, something like that, if, well, white supremacists see more Asian people or black people or other people of color in their media that they consume, if they choose to consume it, though, which is the problem, though, then they can, their opinions on those kinds of those groups of people does improve. So, which is why representation matters. But yeah.
Saw this tweet. Somebody dug up or found something from June of 1954. Comedian Jack Albertson. But, Jack says, Americans are losing their sense of humor. No longer will anyone laugh at himself. Minority groups carry chips on their shoulders, and since the majority is nothing but a collection of minorities, this makes life rough for the comedian. Blackface comedy, a traditional American form of humor, is unfashionable now, and there's not a single top blackface comic left in business.
Wah, wah.
An ex-burlesque comic believes Americans have lost their sense of humor. Cancel culture.
Okay, shut up, Rick Face. Shut up, like, yes, okay. So, like, what, you can't tell, like, your old like problematic jokes at, like, college campuses anymore? You're not owed an audience.
No, you're not. You're not owed an audience, and people's tastes in what they find funny and are the levels of bigotry, especially, have been changing over the course of time, fortunately and happily, I might add, so that we finally come to a time where blackface is absolutely unacceptable. It can get you impeached. I mean, that's the level that we're at now with just blackface. And I love that. I love that we've moved that far as a culture and as a society. But we still have a lot left to go. And when they're finally saying, oh, they're canceling me because I said the word stupid, that's when I'll be happy, because we've still got so much ableism that is just absolutely accepted. It's thrown into jokes, it's thrown into everyday conversation. Your, lovely old granny who fancies herself the most loving person on the planet and bakes everybody cookies, she's still, she's subject to ableism as well. I mean, it's accepted, it's widespread, and almost every comedian I've ever seen likes to joke on use ableism as a big joke. And so we're going that direction. Like, we're finally getting to a point where we can bring up the ableism discussion. I mean, we're almost there. I'm kind of happy about that, because it's been my entire fucking life. You talk about a nasty stereotype. Indigenous people have been stereotyped as stupid for as long as there's been colonialism. That's one of the big, massive drivers. We're smarter than these people because these people don't have what we have. And so we're just going to steamroll them, and we're going to teach the quaint little savages. Like, I mean, that stereotype of Indigenous people being stupid has been around for so long. And man, that one has hit home in me. Especially when you grow up and you get tested and they're like, oh, we're going to stick you in the gifted and talented education program. But when people look at you, they're going to instantly think you're stupid because you're Indigenous. Like, talk about, like, it's just absolutely horrific, the level of ableism that we have in the United States, the world. It's not just the United States, it's the world. Like, it's still one of the most undiscussed things. And we should be discussing it because we live in a time now with technology that we have where ableism should become a thing of the past. I mean, most everybody born with just about any kind of disability there's something we can do to help that person live a much easier, more normal life.
But that would just make people lazy. Like, being entitled, they wouldn't work.
Oh God! Oh, that's how you're like trope that like right wingers like always talked about. It's like, oh, everyone's and this was something that was thrown out to me as well in this discourse. We've been having interesting discussions as we're come on, the world's not a nice place. You gotta deal it up with face it messy or something like that. Basically, it's that kind of resentment. Come on, the world is hard.
The world sucks. It should be suck. Everything's supposed to be bad. Why are you complaining that things are bad? Why are you trying to fix things? Everything is supposed to suck.
Since everything sucks, why shouldn't we suck to each other too?
Which probably is a part of that too, because like that's in Udra Studios' alt-right political thing of like, I hate Mondays. The conservatives say, yes, they can recognize bad things happen, but they believe it's a binary of bad things that happen or they don't. And so they believe that if bad things happen, then bad things always happen. And they believe that nothing can be done about it, but they also believe that you believe that nothing can be done about that. So when you try to like force them to try to change, to try to recognize the problems or try to say that there's something that can be done about it, they resent that because they want to be lazy themselves, kind of like projection as it were, and want to like not think about the things, because again, when you're white and people will talk about race issues, they feel uncomfortable, and like Tavi has like said,
well, they also want to think that you deserve it.
Oh yeah,
there's that part too. A lot of them want to believe that whatever it was bad that happened to you, you deserve it from whatever. They've got these magical standards by which, and it usually boils down to either A, God belief, or B, a work ethic influenced by Christianity. So it's almost always coming back to cultural Christianity.
Oh yes, the Protestant.
They also have a zero-sum game mentality about things.
They do, exactly.
If you're improving something for one group, it must be taking away from another group, and since the white people are on top, that means that anything to help brown people is necessarily hurting white people.
Yeah, everything is pie if you share a piece with somebody that's less for you.
And I say it's just like, okay, no, we're not wanting our own like bigger share of the pie. What we want is take over the bakery.
A bigger pie.
Well, no, we also, I would say we want to take over the bakery, so it's all like community.
Seize the means.
Yes, seize the means, so that we can bake as many pies as we want to. Yes, Carl. Yes, no, not Karl Marx. No. Host of Cosmos. No, Carl Sagan. Oh. He said,
if you want to bake an apple pie from scratch,
you have to first invent the universe. Yes. That was really about like something else entirely that he wants to show us, like the education about like how the universe actually is, and these he's pretty good as well too.
Was Carl Sagan problematic? I think the only thing I've ever really heard about him is he was kind of a womanizer.
He might have been.
I
haven't heard anything about that.
Yes, I'll be here's at this point. I wouldn't be surprised. There are it just happened actually on the Social Justice Alchemy. Me and Literate Honor were talking about how much we love like Ron Perlman as an actor and as a performer. Like once we see him in the movie, like when I saw him in Pacific Rim, all my brothers would go like Ron Perlman. All Marty Anthony had to say in the chat was like he said some transphobic stuff, and both Literate Honor are like, oh, Ron Perlman says transphobic stuff. Fuck him then. And just like. Heel turn right there, just like, oh, someone says transphobic. Well, kill your heroes. Ron Perlman's just a problematic actor.
Carl Sagan apparently was not a great father to one of his kids.
Okay.
Cynical careerist, disloyal friend, security risk, abusive husband. Wow.
Security risk.
I don't know what that means.
What the hell does that mean?
Well, given that this was, the 60s, the 70s, probably they thought he was, too friendly to communists because he was a goofy pothead.
That sort of thing too, because he is critical of the capitalist system, as it were, in some regards, in like for climate change, as it were, of how they're so addicted to like oil and something like that. And he does think like, if the country of America is so rich, how come they're not helping the most in need in the country, as it were? He at least can criticize the American society for that reason too. So not quite Comrade Carl Sagan, but at least more radical than most Americans, I should say. Then he is American, right? I can't remember.
Who, Carl Sagan? Yeah, he was American.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's like sometimes with these like science presenters, they're either American or British, and sometimes it's hard for me to tell. Even though I know that, like, no, the British have an accent, as it were, but sometimes when someone is so well spoken, I mistake them for having a British accent, because I think people who are British or English are much smarter than they actually are because of the accent.
Shit, I just forget if they have an accent or not.
Oh, that's a good point. But one other thing I mentioned, now in a lot of ways, as Joey has said, there's a lot of progress that we've been made. It'd be nice if we continue to make some of those progress in other fields. I'm going to post a link from the LGBTQ nation, because over 60 House Democrats have written a letter to the Secretary of State and demanding that the Biden administration lift a ban preventing embassy workers from discussing same-sex marriage.
How is that even a rule? What the fuck?
Because we want to be nice to our allies like Saudi Arabia.
Well, fuck them.
I agree. Yeah, it's just like it's
fuck them. See, that's why I can't be an ambassador, because I'd just be sitting in the room going, gay, 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 gay.
Oh my God.
Hello, Prince Saud. Your country sucks and you're a terrible person. You should die in a fire.
Yay!
Hello, Prince Arul. This is my boyfriend. Sorry for the public display of affection. So this is a long-standing thing, unfortunately, because we want to be nice with our allies that still have problematic views on certain things, because it's just we want the oil from Saudi Arabia, and they're a sense in being in the region to be able to destabilize the region for our benefit, blah blah blah. It's it's a whole thing. It's kind of we even
it always goes back to capitalism and imperialism. Always, always, always.
Mm-hmm. And how it just this is also kind of a point that dumpster flower made in the dark side of liberalism. Yes, there's a lot of things that liberalism counts as low, like secularism as it were, but when it benefits their capitalist benefit, they'll be fine with religious theocracies as it were, or other kind of religious supremacies and bigotries and all that sort of stuff.
Well, and look at how many democracies they actually have toppled so they could put in some despotic asshole who would sell them their whatever cheaply.
Mm-hmm. Lithium, oil, minerals, coltan or something,
or just that. Control over a region.
They did that to indigenous people. Mm-hmm. They did that to when they first initially got here. They managed to get all of the most when they were signing treaties, they managed to get those leaders who were most sympathetic to their viewpoint to come in and sign away rights that for some tribes men weren't even allowed to sign for those things. For some tribes, some of those tribes were matriarchal. They weren't patriarchal. The men weren't supposed to be signing documents. And yet the government was like, nope. Your guys signed this document. All your shit is ours now. It's a fair deal. You sold your land. And that's how a lot of those sales, quote unquote, went through.
This reminds me of Tabby Wolf was over a year ago wanted to do some research on a land back thing, so I reached out to you, Joey, on Facebook to for sources, and I gave those a Tabby. One of those articles that mentions about this kind of a homework for settlers like me to figure out whose land that they're on. I'm on the Dumawash's land, as we're near around there. Here's what I learned from the little bit of research I had done about Dumawash. Probably already mentioned this before on this channel before, so sorry for mentioning it again, but the chief of the Dumawash at the time in the 1850s, when the white people came here, was named Seattle. And so they named the city of Seattle after the chief. The Dumawash is still not recognized by the federal government. And they had to either something had to share a reservation with other tribes, and that probably did cause some conflict there, or they just they went off their own way. Oh yeah, the settlement of the treaties was just terrible, or if the treaties were good, the white people were not honoring it, and it's just so you even named the city after their chief, and you still treat them terribly, as it were. Of course, white people. So yeah, I gotta do more research on it right now, because the news do know some of the tribes in the local regions were, because of the casinos, the Muckleshoot, the Tulip, but also because the city towns are actually named after their tribes. They're Puyallup, and in the county is named Snohomish after the indigenous people there too. So it's kind of it's still things could be better in this region, as it's always going to be. A lot of work that needs to be done.
Why do you got to say things could be better? Things are bad things should be bad. Okay, you deserve to suffer.
Yeah. Do you also think that everyone faces the same harassment as everyone else? Because that's seriously what.
No. White men have it the worst of anyone. Because
oh, yes, right. Oh, the white men having it the worst than everything else. That's what brings up something I forgot to mention last week. 2 weeks ago, for our last patron show, John Brockman, you came up with the title of "Rapid Onset of Whiteness Dysphoria."
Dysphoria, yes. Because I had just been rediscovering the what's-my-shit bullshit from the bitch who published the thing in Britain that Richard Dawkins loved, where she did research into rapid onset gender dysphoria. Her research solely consisted of talking to parents who had just discovered that their children were trans and were upset.
Oh, so they believe it's a rapid onset of things when
like, really their kid was just afraid to talk to them because they're bigots.
Yes.
See, I thought you were describing when, like what happens in that moment when you realize someone has white fragility.
No, rapid onset whiteness dysphoria is when you're a teenager and you discover that white people are the worst, and it's really hard as a white person to come to terms with that. That's all.
John Brockman, when's the first time you realized that white people suck?
I don't recall. It's been so long. I've lived with this pain my whole life, it feels like.
So the reason why I did bring that up is the interesting thing is I always check my Discord to see I got ping, and there's why I got ping. Usually it's because it's supposed to everyone, but this time actually someone took issue with that title because it turns out that it's true that it was reappropriating a turf ideology, a turf talking point. They were a bit bothered by it, by explaining that it's meant to be in tongue in cheek as a word. So that's why I want they didn't like how it use or legitimizes turf rhetoric as a word. But your point was to make fun of it as a word, but I did want to at least that's a good point to bring up. So I did want to bring that up.
Yes. Absolutely did not intend to legitimize the turfs in any way, shape, or form. They're assholes. They should die in a fire.
Yeah, no
along
shit.
with Prince Sutherland.
And yet, no, turf is not a slur. It's an accurate description of what they are. I use the R to mean.
They started calling themselves, I think, turfs.
But no, believe it, I did actually had someone said to me on Twitter, "Turf is a slur. Stop calling me that." It's stop being bigoted to trans folks.
Yeah. I have a friend who calls them farts. Feminism appropriating radical transphobes.
Yes. I still used to to say reactionary because there's nothing radical about turfism as a word. Let's see.
Although technically radical does mean going for the root, and they are attacking people at the very core of their being, so they're kind of radical that way.
Okay, I can definitely see that.
Just don't say it like you live in California, because that's a totally different intonation.
Radical, man. Hey,
radical, dude.
Early. Tubular.
I watch a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles growing up, so that's how I heard the word radical too. Hey, radical is a good thing, but when you talk about it politically, apparently it's not a good thing. Yeah, I don't agree. I agree, Linwood. Are they really feminists as it were? It's kind of like with Christina Hoff Summers. She calls herself a feminist. I don't know how she.
And North Korea calls itself a democratic republic.
And the Nazis call themselves National Socialists. Sometimes.
People can call themselves whatever the fuck they want. That doesn't mean that they actually are.
I know someone that I heard of someone that calls themselves an anarcho-syndicalist, but apparently they're also for militarized borders.
Well, then you're not okay.
Exactly. It's just hey, Linda's honest reaction to hearing that was just burst out laughing, which is an appropriate reaction too. This is a, I don't know how young this person is, but younger than us, I think. Young-ish white person. Oh yeah.
Why do they want strong borders?
I don't think those words mean what you think they mean.
Again, I heard that this person advocates for militarized borders. I can't be certain of it. I also heard this person calls himself anarcho-syndicalist. I also know he says that kink does not belong to pride. And fuck that noise.
Whatever.
Yes, exactly.
Now that's swerf territory.
Oh yes, exactly. It's because yes. It actually came up in my essay that I read yesterday by David Graeber, "The Shock and Victory," as it were, because he talked about it was written in 2007 as it were. So anti-globalization movement like Seattle WTO and other protests like that. And he has to notice that, like, yeah, sometimes those kind of like movements kind of break apart. And he points out the authoritarian socialists that want to do the biggest, broadest possible coalition of things, as it were. And I point out, oh, you know, all those like the biggest proponents of left unity, they're usually the apologists for folks like Stalin, as it were. And you can definitely hear them cry left unity the biggest when you say sex work is work.
Yep.
Oh God. Genocidal denial is leftists. Again, I'm not all Marxist-Leninists and Marxist-Leninist Maoists. There's some that are really just focused on the praxis, and I can really dig them.
I like Luna Oi.
I like Luna Oi. I like Black Bloc Politics on like TikTok. He's kind of like worked with former Black Panthers. This word, Black Panthers, I like a lot too. So it's like we can agree to disagree on the future society, and I work towards my future society.
Okay, I'm gonna say something that sounds a little bit prejudiced.
Sure,
it's a white people thing.
Yes.
The problem with a lack of unity is really a white people thing. If you go into indigenous spaces, you will find indigenous people know how to come together for this, and they don't agree on that, so they just don't come together for that. They come together for this, and they
White
leave it
people
there.
want the big tent. They want
everybody to agree on everything, and you're never ever gonna have that. You have to come together on the things you can.
White people kind of want people to be quiet. Not complain about the race thing.
Oh yeah.
Well, and they're insistent because of the culture. The dominant culture has this hierarchy. They don't understand what it means to make a community, an actual community of people that are all moving towards the same goal. They don't know how to unify like that in that communal setting. They just don't. And it has to do with the actual culture that it was in Europe. It still is in Europe. You can see it happening in Europe. They still have a hard time unifying over there too. I mean, shit, look at how you have the UK was like, I'm done being European. We're going to be Brits again, and Brits exclusively. We're no longer European. Fuck you guys. And then they left. Like they're one big unity ploy where all the rest of us were like, yes, finally, no borders in Europe. It was such a pain in the ass going from country to country in Europe. It used to be such a pain in the fucking ass. And you had to exchange your money every single time you crossed a damn border. God, it was so infuriating. When they finally unified, I was like, fuck, white people are learning. Are you guys looking? Are you guys looking? And then what do you know? The UK is like, fuck you guys. We don't want to play anymore.
We're tired of all these brown people coming to our country.
And they were about ready to boot Greece to the curb. They were getting ready to like, we don't like Greece. We don't like him.
What do you have to be responsible? We have to be responsible for everyone's financial situation in someone's financial situation like Greece. As like
now you guys are talking about unity, and I don't know what to do with that. Like, see, that's the thing, though. When you unify, it's through the hard times, too. It's for the people who are having problems, too, so that the people who have problems aren't falling apart. You're holding them up in the hopes that holding them up is going to then take over. They're going to be up. And then when you go down, other people will help you. That's the whole fucking idea of community. And it seems simple enough, but it seems to be really, really difficult for most white people to actually get into those
right now. I don't think I'll ever have trouble in the future. So
I'm sorry, Mithril, that Joey's getting at you again.
I know, right? Poor Mithril.
Hey, you did try your best to try to stay in the UK, so it's like that. And that's a good point, Takai teacher. Yeah, a lot of people didn't want to leave the UK. It was kind of like one of those narrow victories, as it were. And yet, even though, correct me if I'm wrong, that like they wanted to enter back into the EU. Amongst the majority majority of the British people as were, that seems like be a popular thing. Definitely Scotland and definitely Wales and wanting to like say
and what the fuck are they going to do about Northern Ireland?
I mean, after it's finally like the Brexit is like done, no deal Brexits were, there was a bit more of awakenings of the troubles at the border in that area as were.
They're going to basically have to build a wall through Dublin.
I mean, even amongst other white people, sometimes there's very much a lot of division amongst white people, as it were.
Well, see, I feel like there's a lot of, especially between the UK and the United States, there's so much similarities there. Like you can almost say when one of them goes in one direction, the other tends to follow. And so if the United States starts going off in some, direction,
fascist direction,
yes, then the UK is probably going to start following. And I don't know if that has to do with the crossover because we share a language. And so a lot of
I think their
their
economy is so tied
back
up in
and forth
at this point.
Or it could just be a cultural connection because, the United States started out more English than any of the other European countries. But if you look at all the European countries, they go through similar things. That it's a similar sort of mindset, and it has to do with how they got colonized. And I think that's one of the biggest, for me anyways, I think that's one of the biggest reasons to push for decolonization. Not just because I think that indigenous people need to decolonize, we certainly do, but white people need to too. Like, I mean, they've got
get the imperialism out of our fucking heads.
Yeah, and there's a lot of centuries to undo. A lot of centuries. But
yeah.
I mean, white folks need to decolonize and need to. I don't even know how you do that, because how do you go back to tribal? How do you go back to a more tribal feeling? A more communal setting in your culture, in your everyday life, when you have separated yourself so far from the land, from other people, from everything that makes us human. Because that's what colonialism
4-hour work day, 3-day work week would help us a lot with that.
I think it would.
Yeah, you know what, that would.
But I mean, it's like if that's actually from what little cursory things was like found in the UBI study in like Toronto, that was like ended abruptly short because of like Doug Ford. That's where, correct me if I'm wrong, Taka teacher as well, because like in some ways also Canada kind of like models after like the United States in a lot of ways too. This is where, so there's that sort of thing. I guess common language. Canada is also colonized as well, so the First Nation people there definitely have their issues with like the white people.
Canada is basically exactly like the U.S.
Yep.
There's not really any difference between us that I can really see.
Yeah.
I think Canadians really, really, really want there to be a big difference between us, but I think
they want to believe that there's a big difference.
Exactly.
They're just less obvious about what they do, and they terrorize a different kind of colored person.
Yep. Mithra, I will send the Zoom link to you. I don't think I'll do it in the email form, so give me a second and I'll send it to you, because like Mithra can't really like type out in like his problems with all of like Brexit. So we'll give you a bit of the floor. We'll this one time we'll give another white person the link to and the floor to like rant about like a Brexit as well.
We need to hear from more white people. White people don't have enough voice in this channel. No.
But hey, it's a part of the balance because we have Joey with us and give the indigenous.
And without Tom, we definitely need an old white guy.
And so the link it's like sent, so like John, and it is Doug Ford, yeah, because like it was Rob Ford, Doug's brother, that was the mayor of Toronto, and
Doug Ford is the premier of the province.
Ontario, yes, exactly, yes, is like, but Doug Ford is kind of like Canadian as Trump, as it were, as scary as that is. But definitely, Doug Ford seems to have absolutely no political position. It's whatever he can say right now to get the populist force and something like that. But no, my older sibling, his first significant other, was actually his girlfriend, and their Canadian girlfriend. She was from Ontario, so yeah, that's trope and cliche about the Canadian girlfriend. That was actually true, and they met online, but they visited each other, actually flew over when they could. But no, it was absolutely true that for Canadians, they're much like the United States, but they're so proud of not being the United States, not being Americans, and proud of being Canadians in that weird way. And yeah, it's just strange as it is, when it's just yeah, Canada is just like America's hat and the 51st state in a lot of ways. They at least still got some form of America for all, though, for everyone. So yeah. And hello, Mithro.
Hey, Mithro.
Hello. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
We can.
So Brexit, how terrible is it?
Oh, it's much worse than anybody except those of us who were Remainers believed. We were constantly being told, oh, it's all Project Fear, when we were saying there's going to be food shortages. There's going to be lots of Eastern European leaving, so there's going to be huge staffing shortages.
Has your medical system collapsed yet due to the lack of nurses?
Well, it's on the way to collapse due to a complete lack of funding over the last 11 years by Conservative governments, who strangely enough seem to forget that they've been the ones in power for the last 10 years. It's nothing to do with me, Gav. Must be somebody else. What?
It was David Blaine. David Blaine? No, that's the magician.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all it's all external.
Tony Blair.
That's the problem.
David Blaine.
Yeah.
Now it's Jeremy Corbyn, but now Keir Starmer. I bet there's something.
There is fun and games going on with Jeremy Corbyn at the moment, because the Labour Party although they suspended him, now look like they're going to try and exclude him permanently. And they're changing the rules so that it's going to be dependent on a vote by MPs only, not the party membership. And the reason for doing this is to keep Keir Starmer's hands clean, so it looks like he's not doing the dirty on him.
Of course. Just make sure you can blame someone else, or make it so that it looks like you didn't do it, as it were.
Yep. Because Keith has proved himself to be as much use as tits on a bull. He is no use at all. He's awful.
Go ahead.
Trucking, HGV driving, whatever you want to call it, is falling apart, Groundhog. And all we get off Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson is, it's the same everywhere else. No, it isn't. There are lots of other countries in Europe that are struggling to get truck drivers because of the shitty conditions they work in, but on a scale, we are, I think, something like 40 times worse than the next one down the ladder. And also, our coronavirus problem is rapidly rising again. Liverpool, really, John? Really?
For the listeners, I gave Mithril an avatar of the Liverpool Football Club because he's from Manchester.
I'm not, but I'm a Manchester City supporter.
He's from the north, near Newcastle.
No, I'm not near Newcastle. Jesus Christ! My team is owned by another Arabian nation. Thank you very much. Not Saudi Arabia. Jesus Christ. Christ.
United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, UAE. Yeah.
I guess right.
So you're from Richmond?
No. What? Holy mother of God! You and your American view of geography in the UK is
I've got purposely mispronounce this like name. Lancashire.
Lancashire. Jesus. Lancashire, actually, if you're from
Lancaster.
There. Yes, I'm from Lancaster, not Pennsylvania.
And the American settlers that came here were not clever with our names. We just like renamed something that like we knew from the old land, so like that. I live near the city of Kent in Washington, and yes, that's the same from like that province in the UK.
When I was a kid, I lived in Richmond, Virginia.
My favorite is the capital of my state, which gets mispronounced. If you come to South Dakota and you say to any local South Dakotan, hey, can we go to, how big is your capital of Pierre? Every single one of them will get really pissed at you and correct you immediately. It's Pierre. They mispronounce a French word and then get pissed at you for pronouncing it correctly, the way the French would actually pronounce it.
Well, the one that always hits me hard with you lot, all Americans actually, I don't know whether it's only occurred in the last sort of 10 to 15 years, but I've only noticed it is boy, except you lot call it buoy.
You mean Boise?
Where the hell did that come from?
That's the floating.
What is a buoy? I mean,
I know, right?
The floating things in the water.
Buoy. Yep.
Oh, and you also need to learn how to pronounce basil and oregano. It's not difficult.
I pronounce it oregano. I'm still going to pronounce it oregano.
Anti-penultimate syllable, like the Romans.
Oregano, basil, aluminum.
And we'll pronounce it like
and
herb.
Cecil, not Cecil.
And we'll pronounce it like herb because there's a fucking H in it.
Aluminium is funny because it's actually spelt differently in America, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I think slightly. We also
the guy who discovered it changed his name. Changed his mind a couple of times over what it was.
Yeah.
He started out aluminum, then he changed it to aluminum, then he changed it to aluminium.
Yeah.
And the second spelling stuck here in the U.S.
The thing about two nations separated by a common language is very true with regarding to America and the UK.
Yeah. We put hoods on the cars. It's not bonnets. That's a good point, Lynn P.
Yeah, and a boot. We call what you call a trunk. We call it a boot.
Oh yeah, it's because we wear boots.
You can get the boot for putting your boots in your boot.
Mm-hmm.
So the phrase "junk in the trunk" has absolutely no meaning to any English person.
No, and I believe I've said it before, but I once caused a great deal of hilarity amongst my American friends when I said I'm just nipping out for a packet of 20 fags.
Yep.
That caused a certain amount of.
And then you get American tennis players going over to England, causing hilarity, telling fans they need to shut up and sit on their fannies.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Or just like for Australia.
Yes, David Skog is right about the Northern Ireland thing. Oh God.
Yeah, build the wall through Dublin to solve the Northern Ireland troubles.
God.
Yes.
Yeah, Farage got himself into trouble the other day for trying.
Yeah, he got paid to put to say something on the thing where you get paid to say stuff.
Oh, yes. Is up the Ra thing. Well, he was on RTE, which is Ireland's national television network. And this young woman journalist had a right, just absolutely ripped him about it. And watching the nicotine-stained man frog's face just fall apart was wonderful to watch.
So some maybe sort
Cameo,
of
that's the one. Yes, thank you, Tim. He got paid to say something stupid and anti-Irish or pro-Irish or weird Irish on Cameo.
He got paid to say up the Ra, which is up the IRA. It's not great. Not a good look for an English nationalist, you know.
Don't worry, we'll just like attack him with milkshakes. That will fix it. As a word,
Yeah,
he'll
yeah.
be so afraid of the milkshakes, he'll stay in his tour bus.
He's already afraid of the milkshakes.
Mhm.
Is he lactose intolerant?
Maybe I am. I'm sensitive to milk. Actually, I don't
me
drink
too.
it. It's too strong for me.
I'm not supposed to have it, but watch me have it anyway.
Mhm.
No,
I love cheese. How can you not love cheese?
Exactly. And cheese is on pizza. So if I eat too much pizza, my body will shut down. Honestly.
Cheese is on pretty much everything if you do it right.
yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed to that either. But yeah, maybe I should look into like vegan cheese, so I won't have that problem. That's what we're is a bit of a change of a topic, but I did want to bring up. I'm going to post this from MSNBC into the live chat right now because Bolsonaro is like the fascist of like Brazil.
He's Brazilian Trump, only slightly more intelligent.
Yes, is being investigated for his response to COVID-19. It may face like charges for crimes against humanity because of his failure to stop the spread of the pandemic. Hey, I will believe it. Yes, definitely.
All the Republicans here in the U.S. should be charged for the same thing. We're getting a 9/11 every other day thanks to this fucker.
Shit.
Mm-hmm. It is so it's like it was nice to actually finally see it happen to like a leader of like a country as it were to get like punished for that. I'll believe it when I'll see it that it happens because like generally speaking as it were the powerful just like seems to like get away with this or whatever. Or even if he does get like charged as it were, he might have like just house arrest as it were. But I hope that the book is thrown out to him because remember he actually did get COVID too as well. A couple of times.
I know. I had my fingers crossed that COVID was going to win on that one.
But like how he got elected anyway, that was such shenanigans that happened to Luella as it were. He was very popular amongst the people. Luna. Yes. It was all trumped up charges that they like filed against him for corruption as it were weeks before. It's like that. John Lim P says in the chat, I hope Jonathan being allergic to eggs doesn't coerce people to come out. I love how your avatar Lim P looks like a trans egg too, even though it's supposed to be a better oval. Oh yes. I'm allergic to eggs, so you all should just crack your eggs and admit it that you're just trans and non-binary or something. I don't know why I have this vote for something. It's my training from watching a lot of way too much Monty Python. Speaking of old people who can't really like they hate it that they can't tell the same jokes that they used to, so or be grumpy old men now.
Please can fuck himself.
Yes, Metro. Correct me if I'm wrong. John Cleese is kind of like a Brexiter, as it were, or some variation of
it. Yeah, he was a Brexiter, but I mean, you know, he spent the last 20 odd years living in California, so his opinion was absolutely worth. You know, it's quite typical. There were a lot of Brits living overseas who had, you know, bought their Spanish villa or their farmhouse in France. None of them having bought Julie's, I noticed, bastards. Who then proceeded to vote Brexit and then whinged like mad when they were told that you've actually got to go home because freedom of movement has ended and you are not a citizen here. See ya.
Your passport says the European Union and your home country, the UK, is now out of the European Union. I know it's a hassle for bureaucracy, but it is bureaucracy. So you kind of have to like go back home and reapply your visa, as it were. I did not expect this to happen, as it were. Well, you voted for it.
I have to face consequences for my actions. So that doesn't happen to white people.
Because
surprised Pikachu face.
Yeah. And of course, the stupid British press doesn't help because they're not immigrants.
Nope.
They're
They're
not
expats. Immigrants is only if you're
they're
brown.
expats. Yeah, it's it's very, very depressing. I mean, The Guardian is probably the best daily newspaper we've got in this country.
That's the one that's not owned by Rupert Murdoch?
Yeah. Well, the Telegraph is owned by well, there's only one of them now. A couple of a tax exile who lives in Jersey in a castle on an island on his own, and the Daily Hate Mail is owned by Rothermere through a company in the British Virgin Isles. So, you know, as always, why anybody is surprised. The hypocrisy of our media owning class is pretty staggering, but it isn't really a surprise to anybody, is it?
No. Yeah, the newspaper, as it were. Even though the Guardian is like better than most of the press in like the UK, it still has some issues with like transphobia and who they platform as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we're going through the process of cancelling. I've been reading a left-wing-ish magazine for a long time.
Called
the New Statesman, which is a British, the Staggers. And it used to be really good. I mean, when I first bought it 40 years ago, there was lots of really left-wing. They used to have John Pilger and Darcus Howe, two very, very good left-wing journalists. And now, it's had the fourth pro-turf article in about six weeks. It's moved more and more towards the centre. We're seeing more interviews with fucking Tory MPs than we are with left-wingers. So I just like, now, bin it, we'll get Tribune and pay 10 quid a quarter instead.
Yeah.
No, I agree, Groundhog. The Guardian is still not perfect, but it's better than a lot of them. It is better than a lot of them.
But like the Guardian is super left wing, super far left. I don't trust it. Just like Vox.com, I don't trust it. It's like, oh god, if you think Vox.com is
honestly, the only socialist newspaper left is Teen Vogue.
I mean, yes, as we said last week, Teen Vogue is actually pretty radical in a lot of ways.
We have two very left-wing papers. One called the Socialist Worker, which is it's all right mostly, but again, it's a bit tanky. And the Morning Star, which is the newspaper of the Communist Party of Great Britain, and although it's on sale in most of the big news agents, I have to say its sales are probably somewhat disappointing, I think, is the kindest way of putting it.
It doesn't have a very robust readership.
No.
I mean, probably just like anarchist zines, as it were. Like we mentioned earlier in the stream about like independent anarchist media, like it's going down. There's also like a crime think, as it were, in other articles. But like, they don't get anywhere near mainstream press attention whatsoever. It's just like dedicated readerships, as it were, as with all like anarchist zines or publications, as it were. I mean, the socialist kind of like the readership was bigger when there was a bigger socialist movement in America, as it were, like near the turn of the last century, as it were.
Yeah, and it's on the rise now, so who knows? Maybe in the future.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe in the future. It'd be nice to know, but yeah.
With
regard to Teen Vogue actually will become a socialist rag.
With regarding to Lynn P's question about do people only get called expats if they're white, almost certainly.
Yeah,
almost completely. Yeah.
This honestly, George John P, you're not wrong. The Onion is more accurate than Fox News.
Yeah.
They're both fake news as well. Since but yet, weirdly enough, sometimes
the Onion's honest.
The Onion's honest, and sometimes the Onion would have like an article or a headline from like 2017, and then becomes true in like 2020 when Vince McMahon joins the Trump administration. That happened for a brief period. Vince McMahon was going to restart the economy at the start of the pandemic. Yeah, I don't.
Satire is dead. Satire is dead.
Yeah, there is.
You just can't make fun of them. They're too stupid to make fun of.
Yeah.
They're so absurd.
Okay, this is a terrible a change of topic. I was about to say, speaking of death, but that'll be a terrible segue. So not too long ago, we haven't reported on it though, but like a conservative MP in the UK did actually got like shot and killed, as it were.
No, he was knifed.
Oh, he was knifed. Okay, that was the correction there. Because I do think that like politicians should have to meet their constituents. It'd be nice that American politicians meet with their constituents sometimes, as it were, but like it's not really worth it to actually like they take someone's life like this, as it were. And he was in the hospital at the time that it happened, right? Am I correct?
No, he wasn't.
He died on the scene.
Okay.
He died on the scene. You know what? The guy was not a pleasant man. I mean, even by conservative. That's not entirely true. What a lot of his colleagues are saying, what a lot of the all across the political spectrum are saying, personally to them, he was very pleasant and very helpful. But he was anti-gay marriage. He obviously didn't believe in trans rights, because, as an extension of that, he done various other shitty things. I don't want to see anybody murdered like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's still a piece of garbage.
I want the oppressive systems to be murdered if they're personified. I mean, not that capitalism will be able to be personified as a person, as it were, but if I have the ability to, and even though I should not like have my leftism be embraced with have this motivation of vengeance, as it were, but there's part of me that like if capitalism is a real person, as it were, as well as like the white supremacy, ableism, and all that stuff, I would go Ricky-O onto like capitalism and just like strangle capitalism to death with his own intestines. But
right, like if you could do the whole thing at one time.
Yes, a whole lot of them, as it were. But at the same time, I really actually, even though like I do wish Bolsonaro to die, but I don't want someone to actually murder Bolsonaro.
See, I'm one of those people who I'm not gonna do it myself, but if somebody else does it, I'm not gonna cry.
Yeah. And the left is so violent. Listen, there's a big difference between like say punching and Nazi, because they're a Nazi and like they should be afraid to be able to be platformed and speak out about their bigotries and what they want to do and something like that. They have to be afraid to go out in public, which is why Antifa has that diversity attack this work. But definitely. And a anarchist actually killed a president in the turn essentially 90s, as it were, and that was actually something that like anarchists and other leftists talked about, the propaganda D2 to like actually commit terrorism, as it were, to try to like radicalize more people, as it were. But I think it's like right now, listen, Ted Kaczynski was a narco-criminalist. I don't agree with narco-criminals at all anyway, but it kind of did hurt. Like, I think a lot of anarchists at the time hate to like call themselves anarchists in public when Ted Kaczynski did the terrible things that he did, because they had to like be like, listen, not all anarchists are bombers like Ted Kaczynski, and we're not all ANPRIMs anyway, so we're. But
your issue with ANPRIMs is that you're talking about a whole group of people that they don't know what it's like. They haven't broken a leg out in the middle of God's nowhere and had to depend on other human beings for sustenance.
Yeah.
Like they're your basic libertarian.
Yes, they're the Amprams are the people who took it seriously when conservatives say, if you hate the capitalist system, why don't you just go out and live in the woods? And that's
What is it with white people in the woods? Come on.
Hey, and again, if they don't bother anyone else, hey, more power to them, as it were. I really don't want
as
to live.
long as they're not hurting anybody else or hurting themselves, I don't really have an issue with it. It's just like people with their fucking religions. Like, as long as it's not doing harm to people, I don't care. But the issue then becomes, okay, well, show me where it's not doing harm to people, though. Like, if you're voting, it's doing harm to people. If you're, you know, out there on social media spreading your bullshit, it's doing harm to people.
Or passing terrible legislation that like restricts reproductive rights, or like demonizes or criminalizes or others like queer people, or prevent them from having equal rights and all this stuff. Yeah.
Or supporting the people who do those things, because there's plenty of people who say, I don't believe in that, but you know, their economic policies. You know what? I'm getting tired of this whole lame excuse of, you know, this is their economic policies. That's what I'm voting on. I'm not voting on their social agenda. When the social agenda is coming along with it, and it's an amoral social agenda.
Yeah, I agree. It's because like that tells us that you don't have a problem with their, or don't have a big enough problem with their bigotry, their like racism, or their policies that are anti-progress, as it were, to not vote for them, as it were.
And their economic policies are ignorant and don't work.
That's right. But the economic policies too, they do still hurt the most vulnerable, most marginalized people anyway, with cuts of like the social benefits, what barely there is any of it, or not.
We lost all of the Eisenhower Republicans. They're just gone.
Yes.
Well, they do the Democrats.
They did, yes, like the Joe Biden, or like there was actually the Republican that switched to the Democrats in 2020 to vote for Biden, and he was platformed actually at the DNC in 2020, and the Democratic Party again likes to like platform the like moderates more than say like AOC or Bernie.
I've been thinking about why the Democrats suck so bad, and I honestly think it's because of the Republicans. The Republicans are the fascist party, and so the Democrats have defined themselves as the not fascist party, and that's a really big tent.
Yeah.
To be not fascist to me includes the conservatives like Biden and Manchin and Sinema.
Yeah, the fascist lights.
So they can't make any promises. They can't fulfill any promises because there's so many people in their base that anything they do is going to piss off someone.
Yes, it will. I mean, even there's something else that happened like not too long ago that we haven't reported on, is that like and this is how you should actually go and talk to the representatives, were especially when they don't hold town halls or town meetings, as it were, or make themselves available to talk to. Go to them, as it were, as protesters and activists went to Kristen Sinema in the bathroom, honestly, but they were allowed to go into that bathroom too, as it were, but confronted her for why she's not passing any of the progressive policies. And they said, like, listen, we're your constituents from Arizona, and you're not passing the progressive policies that we want you to pass, like getting rid of the filibuster, passing the like budget bill, passing the voter rights, and so or why are you not doing any of those things? And she just like blew them off, ignored them, and went back to like the college courses, or like the seminars that she's doing on how to fundraise. Shows you where her priorities are, and then the dinners to her donors as well. Again, shows you where her priorities are, which we're not surprised. I don't know, but there were also like activists that like when Joe Manchin was on his yacht on vacation, or like on the weekend, as it were. Of course, he has a yacht, but like they canoed up to the yacht, and at least Joe Manchin at least talked with them and engaged with them. Didn't agree with them, but at least talked to them and engaged with them. That's how we got to like confront the politicians. And even
or we could light the yacht on fire.
Yes.
So long as Joe Manchin's not on it, because we don't want to be like.
I would not commit to
that. While I wouldn't do things like that.
No uncoded communications over open channels. I know.
Yes. It's not here to say Starfleet Revelation 46A, so I'll remember that as well.
Fucking yacht dwellers, anyway.
And yeah, that's a good point. Groundhog. It's not like we in America have like MPP, mixed proportional representation, as it were, or we don't even have like an electoral system. Limpy says this on her Twitch channel, the twitch.tv/Lou_Woo. It's like if we don't have full suffrage, like our prisoners are not, felons are not allowed to vote. How can we call ourselves a democracy?
Yeah, no,
we are a democracy in danger. Is what we are, especially in Republican-controlled places.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, the police are going to prosecute the activists who followed her into the loo, aren't they?
Well, they always said that we were a great experiment. So, I mean,
that's a good point.
It's about time to hit that. Remember that scene in, what was it, Species, where they inject the DNA into the thing in the incubator, and the thing starts growing and taking over the whole room, and they have to hit that flame button so they can kill the whole growing entity. Like, I think we're almost there. I think we're almost like gonna hit that flame button and just go, wait, start over.
Yeah.
Reset the world. Oh, yeah.
And let's not do that bullshit again.
we currently have Home Secretary Priti Patel, one of the most disgusting human beings ever to walk the planet, who's now getting indemnity for border force, which is effectively what you guys have. If people coming over the English Channel, they're going to be told to be turning these people back, and if they drown, the legislation will stop border force police from being held responsible for it.
So Priti Patel was trying to commit crimes against humanity? That sounds like an act of genocide. Is what,
yep, it does.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
She's words fail me. I don't often use the word evil, but I think in her case it is completely justifiable because she fucking loves it. She absolutely loves it.
Sounds like what we did here in the U.S. Whipping immigrants trying to cross the Rio.
Yeah,
yeah, it sounds like Stephen Miller.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, to make it worse though, she's the child of Ugandan immigrants who left Uganda when Idi Amin was in charge.
Well, that's different. She was benevolent to those children.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing about racists. If they are benevolent, then they are perfectly fine with people who are not white, but they have to have the opportunity to be benevolent.
Yeah. And it's down to British colonialism because she was what's known as a Ugandan Asian. And when my country was looking after Uganda for the people who would be coming along later, they imported a lot of Indian people from somewhere else that we were looking after for the long-term well-being of the country. They brought a lot of Indians in and put them into bureaucratic posts because they were better, in inverted commas, at doing that sort of thing than the unruly other people. And it led to the same happened in South Africa. So there was this second tier of people who were told that it was perfectly fine. No,
you can say the same thing about the USA. USA doing the genocide? Never. Sarcasm. But yeah, the thing is with like our border situation is where I think it's like not too long after the whipping happened. Oh, it's not whipping. They were long range. It's like forget that pedantic arguments. It's still inhumane treatment of the Haitian refugees still, but they were just outside the border as we're trying to get in because again, not only the actual
because that's how you claim refuge.
Exactly. How you claim asylum, you go to the United States. That's the first step, and it's perfectly legal. But then they got deported all because Biden, continuing the policy from Trump all of like, oh, we have a pandemic right now, don't let anyone in, when there's no evidence that like refugees or immigrants spread the disease. And the idea that the dirty immigrants are spreading diseases is a xenophobic trope too.
And again, we see that the people who are most likely to spread it are actually the conservative white folk again. Like it's always been. It's because it's not the progressive white folk that went off and did the colonialism. It's not the progressive white folk that went off and did the imperialism. Like, that's when we're talking about the people who actually do the acts that are so shitty. It's not the progressive. It's never the progressive, no matter what time and era that you're in, no matter how far back you go, no matter whose people you're looking at. It's never the progressive portion of the population. It's always the super conservative, the super ultra religious. It's always those types. Always. They're the ones actually committing the atrocities. They're the ones voting for the atrocities. They're the ones in power when those atrocities are actively happening. When the progressives get it, they stop it. They reverse it, and they start trying to improve things.
You're letting me off there, Yoey.
There you go, Mithril. There's your out card. Yes, but I am a progressive, and therefore, that's not actually me.
Okay.
And that's a good point, Groundhog. Perhaps you should just put in the hotels in quarantine if you're worried about like COVID. Oh yeah.
Well, when you say hotels, you mean concentration camps, right?
Oh yeah, because
those are still open.
They're still open in the United States.
But we're not taking the children away from them and putting them in a separate camp, so that makes us better.
Yeah, at least the families get to stay together in jail.
And ICE is still around, and like terrible practices by the custom borders and control and still around, because again, when you create these kind of agencies where it's like certain people, like white people, get to have power over to like the marginalized and the vulnerable, as it were, and the white supremacists will love to take those jobs and be able to like do some white supremacy, but in the subtle way of like, hey, it's their fault for breaking the laws, when again they weren't. Thinking this island's perfectly legal, and it's just like, but it's just like those kind of terrible people just always seek out to be cops, seek out to be enforcers, seek out to be like agents of those things, seek out to they want to have that position of power over people, which is why I say just don't have those positions of power in general, as it were, ideally. And that's also why I say that borders, like militarized borders,
are violence. The existence of a border is an act of violence.
Exactly.
And speaking of the guys who were whipping people at the border, they were punished. They lost their horses.
That's right.
They lost their horses.
That's right.
At least the horses get to be retired. Poor fucking horses.
Yeah. The groundhog, we didn't know.
It's just like with dogs. I feel bad when we start employing in our fascism, when we start employing other species in that. Like, it's already bullshit to begin with that we're doing it to each other, but to then bring dogs or horses into the mix and have them, it's wrong.
Taverny Wolf has mentioned to me when I was reading one of those political essays I do read about, about police, as it were, and about those like drug sniffing dogs, as it were. They really are encouraged to find drugs, as it were, because it's about a play and all those sort of things. But also they would not get good treatment if they didn't find drugs. So they are kind of encouraged to like demonstrate that they found drugs or found evidence of drugs in the past in this car or before, as were, and that is enough suspicion of drugs being there for the black people and people of color to be arrested and thrown to jail, and just like the whole other things. And sometimes it's enough to like get a felony.
It's funny how the drug sniffing dogs always seem to find drugs on brown people and just ignore white people.
Yeah, something about
It's almost like the canine doesn't even get called to the scene when a white person's pulled over.
No,
Yep.
and it's also like the dog's responding more to the officer than to the scent of drugs.
Something about like the white supremacy in the police forces, as it were.
When you got a fascist handler.
Yep.
I mean,
just like when the dogs, like during the civil rights and other protests, or they probably even protest recently, how those white supremacist white cops use those dogs on the black people protesting for their rights. That's where.
Well, look at what they did at Standing Rock. That was one of the first things that they did was loose their dogs on protesters.
And that's probably still happening, like where you mentioned in the past of like the Engines 3 pipeline in Minnesota, is where water protectors and water defenders are still being under heavily surveillance by the cops, because the Enbridge company hires the cops, is where the Enbridge is subsidizing the cops' like overtime pay and extra equipment and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Well, they found out that it was actually a lot better at Standing Rock to hire the police than it was to hire private security, because they got in a lot of trouble. All of a sudden, Eric Prince was outed as the guy who owned the security company. It was Eric Prince's company that was responsible. Like, they even changed their name right there. They changed their name because people found out at Standing Rock that it was them. They immediately changed their name to Tiger Swan.
Yeah, I remember that.
Wow.
It happened here in the UK as well to an extent, but it was found out that under British law, security officers don't have the same rights as police officers, so they can get away with a lot less, but they were still allowed to get away with a hell of a lot of things like the Newbury Road protests and, the one just down the road from me, the anti-fracking protests. They were doing some pretty disgusting stuff to people.
I saw a video of a cat biting a cop once. See, all cats are Antifa.
All cats are beautiful. Cats are radicals. They're the anarchist mascots, because there's the General Strike cats, and there's the
and because they never listen. I mean, that's the wonderful thing. I mean, you know that somebody has an anarchist streak in them if they are a cat person. You know that they do, because that's why conservatives hate cats and love dogs. Can't be controlled.
Dogs have a more gregarious, like master servant relationship with their owners, as it were. Well, cats, cats, that's their own person, as it were. You're just roommates.
Person. Oh, okay.
Dogs are wonderful animals too.
Dogs are wonderful, but conservatives prefer dogs because they want to own slaves.
Yes.
See, that's the thing about being on the far left, though. You can have an anarchist poochie. I mean, you absolutely can have a pupper who's an anarchist pup.
Yeah,
but all cats are anarchists, and so they are popular over. I think you find more combination of dog cat people on the left than you do in conservative circles.
Because conservatives definitely want that white picket fence, the nuclear family, and the golden retriever dog as well.
Yeah, specifically the golden retriever too.
They're not my favorite dog. No, they're not my favorite dog, I must admit.
Groundhog says, on one hand, cats are great. On the other hand, they're pests here, and Groundhog's from New Zealand. Thanks, England, for importing so many pests.
I'm sorry. Oh, Christ.
I'm sorry, Mister. We brought you on again so that you can rant up in spoken word form about Brexit, but it turns out you're to blame for something else as well.
They're also the reason that we have so many tumbleweeds in the United States. Tumbleweeds are not indigenous to the United States.
Really? England brought the tumbleweeds over as well?
Yep, it was the English. They brought them over as a decoration in their gardens.
What?
Because when the tumbleweed plant itself, when the plant it won't grow wild there. It dies there. It can only grow in your gardens in England. But the plant itself is actually kind of pretty when it blossoms.
Oh.
And it dies easily, and you just pop the top off and you throw it away, and it's no big deal. Well, here in the United States, they went wild.
Yeah.
And now we have so many tumbleweeds that we have routinely every year. They talk about the tumbleweed capital of the United States. I can't remember the name of the town, but there is a town in South Dakota just to the north where there's this massive, it just happens to be, this is the way that the wind blows in this particular town. And there is one spot in their town where the wind blows into a corner of this giant warehouse.
Oh, no.
And it makes a mountain of tumbleweeds 3 stories high.
Jesus.
And they call it the world's biggest tumbleweed mountain. It
More
develops every fucking year. And the reason that we have so many tumbleweeds in the United States is their only predator, the only thing that eats them, are camels. They're indigenous to the desert of Sahara, where camels eat them all the time. Camels love them. And because we have no camels in the United States, they've just gone crazy here. And that's how we have so many tumbleweeds.
They're thought to be native to Eurasia, so not just the Sahara.
The town in South Dakota is Mobridge, South Dakota.
Yeah, there you go.
There are camels in Asia, in Eurasia as well. So yes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, apparently the numbers are kept down by camels eating them all the time, and here there's nothing to eat them. So,
God, I like Ghost and Crown Dog. I've got lots of happy memories of when I was a kid from.
But tumbleweeds that's like actually one of the things that you think of when you think of American Westerns.
Yeah,
it's the first thing people think of. Well, it's not indigenous. It was already going crazy by then.
Yeah, it was imported to a place sometime. Brought in with flax seeds, apparently.
Yep. That makes sense for the flax seeds. I can see the use of that. Flax seeds, that's where. Oh, God.
We have the same problem here with chrysanthemums because they were brought rhododendrons because they were brought over from the foothills of the Himalayas as a decorative plant.
Mm-hmm.
That must be how Southern California got them.
In the southeast, our problem is kudzu, which was imported from Africa.
The other one is, I think, Himalayan balsam is the same.
Oh yeah, palm trees to LA. Yep, definitely. I can't see how like palm trees would be like indigenous to like a Los Angeles area.
No, they're not.
That totally makes sense. I don't know what's imported to like the to Washington State or the Pacific Northwest is where I imagine there's some things because white people came here, of course, and it was a white supremacist project to found Oregon and Washington anyway. But that reminds me of a Simpsons episode of where Bart Simpson accidentally brought a bullfrog to Australia.
Oh God, yes. Yeah, but that's based on a fact, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was the cane toad, southern cane toad.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Again, white people, stop bringing your own shit, as it were. Unless it says BRB, like BYOB, bring your own beer, or bring your own beef, or bring your own bombs, as it were. Don't bring your own bombs, please. No. Again, come as visitors, explorers, not as settlers, as it were. Because
pack in, pack out.
You can white people again. Metro, you gotta speak up for like white people again. No. You gotta answer for white people.
That's pretty much all three of you, though.
No, that's true. That's all three of us.
my country is a result of colonization as well, though, 1,000 years ago.
Yep, from France and
France. Yeah,
and again, we blame the French.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the French installed.
It all goes back to Rome, though.
True, it does. Yeah, it all goes back to Rome. That's like, the Vikings did their thing, but it's like earlier was Rome for sure. Definitely.
That reminds me. Did you see the thing about them dating the earliest Viking settlement on North America?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was great. They dated it to 10/10/21, I think.
I love it because it's in my opinion, I like it because I feel like it's an offset to the whole colonial thing. Like you can have a village, you can move someplace without displacing the people who were already there.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can become neighbors to those people rather than some kind of, nasty conqueror who thinks that you're better than they are. Yeah. And I'm hoping that kind of helps, maybe offset, especially with younger generations of, colonizers, gets through to their heads like, hey, maybe we can decolonize too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was Newfoundland, wasn't it? It was Newfoundland.
Yep,
where they found their houses. Yeah.
That does make sense. Right where Tim Talk Teacher is close by, as well. But Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. You're near in Nova Scotia, if I'm correct, as well. And hey, Joe, you're a bit late, but
Joe.
Welcome to the stream. Having got a lot of conversations too. And Joe, we're blaming white people for a lot of the problems. That's
pretty much everything.
Pretty much.
If not white people, England.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Actually, it's me.
Even though we had to guess several times before figuring out where Metro is from, Lancaster. So yes, but the Vikings coming to America, North America. That reminds me of a okay-ish action movie, The Pathfinder, with Carl Urban being one of the sons of.
I saw that. Oh my God! Talk about the ultimate white savior plot. Holy crap!
Yes.
Holy smokes! Especially when it's notorious. Every indigenous person I know jokes about how white people just get lost. They just do. They never know where they are.
Yeah. Yep.
You can give them the stars, you can give them GPS, you can give them all kind of shit, and they will still get lost. It's a joke among indigenous folks.
God, yeah. I mean, is
this India? I think this is India. We're in India. You're Indians, right?
I know. You guys got lost on a hemisphere, a whole ass hemisphere.
There's a not very good program called the Alaska Triangle, which postulates lots of paranormal shit in Alaska. It's fun. It's silly, but but they always lead it off with saying, in the last 30 years, 16,000 people have disappeared in Alaska.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Let's start with the fact that a lot of those are indigenous women.
Oh,
yeah.
And let's also have a look at the fact that, fuck me, if you get lost out there, you're screwed, aren't you?
I know, right? It's the middle of nowhere.
Honestly, I think
it's easy to get lost between rocks in a tundra.
Yeah. Have I been around this rock before? I don't know. Let me mark with the X. The Viking settlement was found in Newfoundland in the 1960s. Or white people going to Gibraltar and ended up in Turkey.
Yeah.
And then you think.
Well, look at how long Moses was stuck in that freaking desert.
I know.
Wait. But he was Jewish. Is he really white? I mean.
That's
I
really
guess he probably wasn't white, huh? Yeah, you're right. That was whitewash stuff.
Also, that story never happened.
Yeah, because nobody can get lost for that long in that tiny ass desert. I mean,
it
takes you how long on a Fitbit?
You could walk across that thing in a week. Yeah.
Oh, that's nothing. You just need a canteen of water or something like that, spare that, as it were. There should be oasis around there. Come on.
I want that GPS, Joe. I want that GPS too, mate.
Hey, I can walk across that desert in a week. I saw Bear Grylls survive out in the desert before.
Oh God, yeah.
I saw it on TV. I can do it.
Oh, that's a standard white people thing, honestly. It's like, let me
Oh
try
my
that.
God.
I love my motorbikes, and there was a lot of people, particularly from the UK, decided to go. There was a famous TV series where I can never remember. Ewan McGregor and a posh friend of his took their motorbikes around the world.
Mm-hmm. I remember that show.
And it was great fun. And clearly they had a backup vehicle and a big crew with them. But there were lots of other people who thought, yeah, I see Charlie do it. I can do that. No, you can't, because you're crap, and you really don't know what you're doing.
Yep. We've been going at this, at least me and John Brockman is going at this for like 2 hours and a half. And that's a good point, Groundhog. Meanwhile, indigenous Polynesians, Malaysians, and Micronesians all sail across the Pacific by the sun, stars, and seas currents. That's where, and us white people can't get it right. Honestly, us white people. It's amazing that we got this far.
I mean, the Vikings could. They did very well with that.
Yes.
Even so, they did have to get lost in order to end up at Finland.
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't they just hop in their boat and hope for the best? Like,
no, they could reliably steer to where they wanted to go. It's just that they
you're gonna
didn't
get
find those
somewhere
places.
if you just head out. Like,
but they found Greenland and Finland
guess.
by accident. But then they were able to get back there whenever they wanted because they knew how to sail.
We live on a globe. It's a pretty good guess that if you hop in your boat and you head in a direction, you're gonna hit something.
Yeah.
So I run out of things to say, so I think it's a good place to stop. So Metro, you don't have anything to plug other than the kindness of humanity, as it were.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's it.
Kindness of humanity. Joey, you do have a Patreon that people can at least give you money, and you're not going to say no to that.
Yes, I do. That I do actually have a plan on writing for if I can get my butt in gear to actually start a sentence. I don't know if you can be a non-writer and get writer's block, but I feel like that's what happens to me because I pull up Patreon and I sit there on a blank page, like right at my keyboard. And just sit. Shit. Like I've got subjects to write about and everything. I can pick a subject and I don't know where to start. Like I don't know if there's some kind of weird pressure, what it is about Patreon, because it's just weird.
Maybe, Joey, you should start at the conclusion and work your way backwards because you know what you're going to say at the end of it, don't you?
that reminds me of Anne Bancroft, the actress who was married to Mel Brooks. She one day came back to a home from the set. Oh man, it's terrible day at work. I was like, we did this, the sets were light, they had to get the lighting, had to wait out there, so the lights were light, and so it's a whole hassle. That was a terrible day at the set. And Mel Brooks just took a blank piece of paper and a pen, set that in front of Anne Bancroft on the table, and told her that's how hard writing is. And she never complained about being an actress on set before too. So sometimes you just stare at the blank page and just hope something comes out. This work. But to find my pitches, charitylinks.page. Don't forget about that. Phoenix's GoFundMe is in there. Julie's is in there. Joanne Roberts is in there. They all need money. You can really help people out if you could. And I'm of course Summer and Geek on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Probably will stream later on today if I feel like it. So check it all out. Probably play some games as well. And John Brockman, you're part of another podcast, aren't you?
Indeed, I am. Dungeons and Debacles. Very different from this. A lot of fun. We are saving the world from an evil red dragon cult.
And
we just made friends with a Dwergar.
That sounds like fun. And also forget Isaiah Taylor's YouTube channel is also in the description down below as well. And says he's working on another YouTube video about the Mars, trying to go to Mars as it were. So do check that out. And that's my final pitch. So goodbye, comrades and potential comrades.
Good night, everybody.